Hello all my dear students of Full English. I hope you all are doing good. I hope your studies are going on great for your upcoming exams. So today we are going to revise the most important topic of your exams, that is TDS and TCS. We have already done the revision of PGPP and assessment procedure in a very comprehensive manner and especially for you all in Full English. So now the third topic that we are going to start today is TDS and TCS, which will be comprehensive revision of this particular topic. Now, one thing you please remember, all of you, all my dearest students of South India especially who wants to learn direct text from me in full English, you don't worry about it. I will be uploading the entire syllabus in full English for you all. You have to give me some time, okay? You cannot be sitting on my head all the time. I am one person. It is not possible for me to revise everything simultaneously. It may happen that I may upload some videos for Hindi first and then for English. Sometime it may also happen that I will upload some videos for English first and then Hindi. But nevertheless, I will be uploading the entire syllabus for you all. You be rest assured with that, okay? Not only this, I will also be uploading the ICAI MCQs reasoning also. I will also be uploading the past paper compilation, past RTP, past exam paper, past MTP compilation, all of them in full English. So you be rest assured, you study well. I am there to support you till the very end, okay? So today we are going to start with the topic of TDS and TCS. So let us start with the revision of TDS first and then we will talk about TCS at the end of this chapter. TCS is a very small part of this chapter. TCS is not a very big part, okay? Now the first thing that we need to keep it in mind while we deduct TDS, remember the TDS is a topic which is from the perspective of the payer, perspective of the deductor. A payer will pay something to some other person who is a payee, and while making the payment or while making the credit in the books of accounts, he will deduct the TDS in most of the cases. Now, the first thing that the payer has to keep it in mind that he should not deduct TDS on GST portion. On GST portion, TDS should not be deducted if some conditions are fulfilled, if the other person, the payee, is a resident, and if the GST portion is separately indicated in the invoice, okay? So if the other person, that is the payee, is a resident and if the GST is separately indicated in the invoice, you are not supposed to deduct what? TDS on the GST portion. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next point. Section 206AA. What is this section, sir? 206AA. 206AA talks about requirement of PAN, permanent account number. The payee has to give a permanent account number to the payer. The payee has to give a permanent account number to the payer. If the payee does not give the permanent account number to the payer, section 206AA will attract. And what will happen? Then the payer will deduct TDS at a higher rate. What is the higher rate? There are three rates given by the government. First is the rate specified in the respective section. Whatever is the rate specified in 192, 193, 194, 194C, 194H, that rate. Compare with rates in force. Rates in force is generally applicable to DTAA cases, or some cases rates in force are also mentioned in Finance Act. And the third case is 20%. So in short, if the other person, the payee, does not give you the PAN, then you have to deduct the TDS at actual rate or 20%, whichever is higher, okay? But there are two sections in which if the payee does not give the PAN, it is not 20%, it is instead of 20%, it is only 5%. Which are those two sections? One is 194O and another is 194Q. In these two sections, the payer will not deduct TDS at 20%. Instead of that, he will deduct TDS at 5% if the payee does not give the PAN. Okay. Now, there is one circular which is brought by CBDT in 2024. Now, what is this circular? I will give you the background of the circular. Now, we all know that the government has been saying since long time that everybody has to link their PAN and Aadhaar, PAN and Aadhaar, PAN and Aadhaar, PAN and Aadhaar. Remember? And after a particular point of time, the government has said that from 31st of July 2023, if you don't link your PAN and Aadhaar, then the payee will be treated as if he does not have a PAN. And then the payer has to deduct TDS at higher rate, that is as per 20% or as per 5% as the case may be. But in this case, the CBDT has given a relaxation. Again, I am saying, if the payee does not link PAN and Aadhaar, the PAN of the payee will be inoperational, unoperational, non-operational, and in that case, the payer has to deduct TDS as if the payee does not have a PAN. And in that case, I have to deduct TDS at 20%. But there is a relaxation given by the government that if your transaction is done till 31st March 2024, till when the transaction is done? Till 31st March 2024, and assessee has died, that is the payee has died, payee has demised, the deductee and the collectee has demised on or before 31st May 2024. Before linking the PAN and Aadhaar, see, by till 31st of March, the transaction has been done by the payee, and he has died later on before 31st of May, in that case, there is no liability to the deductor to deduct or collect tax at a higher rate. In that case, I am not liable to deduct TDS at higher rate as per this section. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. Now, next one. There are some cases where there is no need to obtain any PAN. That is, there are two cases in which there is no need to obtain any PAN by the payee. First, in case of a non-resident and foreign company, if they earn four kind of income: interest, royalty, FTS and capital gains. In case of a non-resident foreign company, if they earn these four incomes: interest, royalty, FTS and what? Capital gains income, then there is no need for them to give a PAN. Without giving a PAN also they can survive. No need to deduct higher TDS in that case. Now, but they have to give some other information, some basic information like name, email ID, contact number, the address in which the country, in the country of which the dedictee is resident, certificate of his being resident from foreign country, tax identification number we have to give him. Okay, we have to give these basic data to whom? In case the payee is a non-resident foreign company and they earn these four incomes which I have told you just now. Second relaxation, in which case PAN is not required. Again, non-resident and foreign company earning interest from long-term bonds mentioned in 194 LC. So whatever long-term bonds are mentioned in 194 LC, if the non-resident and foreign company is earning interest out of it, then the deductor should not ask for PAN. There is no need to obtain PAN from the payee. Okay. Now, last but not least, before we start with our first section, section 192, the last thing is, while deducting the TDS, should I also deduct the surcharge and cess also? Remember, you should deduct surcharge and cess in case of non-resident, surcharge if applicable and cess always. Okay. So if you are making payment to non-resident, surcharge if applicable. If the income is exceeding the surcharge limit, deduct surcharge also, but cess always in case of non-resident. In case of resident, only in case of salary you have to deduct surcharge if applicable and cess always. In case of salary, you have to deduct surcharge if applicable and cess always. In case of all other resident other than salary, in case of all other resident other than salary, there is no need to deduct what? There is no need to deduct any kind of surcharge and cess. Directly deduct the TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, let's start with our first section of TDS, that is section 192, which talks about TDS on salary. Now, who will deduct TDS in this case? Any person will deduct. Any person will generally be employer only. Okay. Now, who will be the deductee? Who will be the payee? The payee will be resident, non-resident. Everybody's TDS will be deducted here only. There is no separate section for resident and separate section for non-resident as far as salary is considered. Okay. What is the timing of TDS? The timing of TDS of deduction is payment. It is not credit or payment, whichever is earlier in this section. It is payment in this section. And what is the rate of TDS? The rate of TDS will depend upon the slab rates. It will depend upon the slab rates of the SHE, whether he falls under 5% slab, 10% slab, 15% slab. It also depends upon whether the payee follows the old regime or new regime. By default, remember, the payer by default will deduct TDS as per new regime only. But if the payee wants that the TDS should be deducted as per old regime of the income tax law, then the payee has to give a declaration to the payer that I want to get deducted myself as per the old regime. Accordingly, the payer will deduct as per old regime. Okay. Now, there are a lot of points over here which we need to talk about one by one. First point, if for the first 6 months, the employee was working in some other company and after that the employee came to my company, am I obligated to deduct TDS for the previous employer also? See, that is optional for me. That is not mandatory for me. If I want, if the employee tells me that deduct the TDS for the previous employer also, I will deduct. I am not obligated to deduct TDS for the previous employer. Previous employer was obligated to deduct TDS for his salary. I am obligated to deduct TDS for my salary. Second, suppose the assessee gets some arrears of salary of last year. Then the assessee is eligible for relief under section 89(1). Then am I supposed to give that relief also before deducting the TDS? Yes, I will give the relief under 89(1) before deducting the TDS for arrears of salary, provided the employee gives me a declaration in form 10E. He has to give what? He has to give a declaration in form 10E to me. If he gives a declaration in form 10E to me, I will give him the relief also. The third point, if the assessee, if the employee is also earning income from some other sources, am I supposed to deduct TDS from other sources income also? Like if the employee is earning income from say house property, if the employee is earning income from say PGPP or IFOS, am I supposed to deduct TDS on all other incomes also? Again, it is optional. It is not mandatory for me. Okay. I may deduct, I may not deduct. It is not mandatory. It is not, I am not at fault if I don't deduct the TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next, if the employee has some losses, am I supposed to consider that losses before deducting the TDS? Yes. For house property loss, I have to consider, but for any other loss, I am not liable to consider. But for house property loss also, you all know that the self-occupied property losses are only allowed under the old regime now. Under the new regime, even that is not allowed under the income tax law now. Okay. Next, suppose I am an employer, you are an employee, and I am giving you some non-monetary perquisite on which I am only bearing the tax. So in that case, am I supposed to deduct the TDS? The answer is common sense. The answer is no. If the employer himself is bearing the tax, then why the hell he will deduct the TDS on that particular amount? So there is no need to deduct TDS in that case. We have already done this issue in the chapter of PGBP, that where the employer pays tax on non-monetary perquisite, then that tax on non-monetary perquisite is disallowed in the hands of employer, and that is exempt in the hands of the employee. I hope it is clear to all of you. Yes. Employer will give you deduction of chapter 6A, will give you deduction, will give you exemptions of HRA, will give you set off of losses only if you provide the proof to the employee. If you provide the proof to the employer, only then he will give you deductions of all these things, and after that he will deduct the TDS. Next one, by default I have told you he will deduct TDS as per 115 BAC subsection 1A. If you want to go under the old regime, you have to give a declaration. Next, where a firm pays salary to the partner, then whether the TDS will be applicable under this section, the answer is no. When a firm pays salary to the partner, that is not a salary income, that is a PGBP income. For that, government has made a new section 194T, which is applicable from 1st of April 2025. We will talk about that section later on. Okay. Next, suppose if I go to some hotel or restaurant, and if I pay some bill to the restaurant, and in that bill they also charge some service charge, which is called as a tip, which that tip they will give to the waiters, to the staff of the hotel. Whether the hotel is responsible to deduct TDS on that staff tip also, the answer is no. On that staff tip, they are not liable to deduct the TDS. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now the next one is a very important amendment made by Finance Act 2024, which is applicable with effect from 1st of October 2024. Now what is this amendment all about? Let me give you an example. I have given you a complete numerical example in the class if you remember, but here also I will try to give an example orally to the extent it is possible from my side. I am an employer, you are an employee, and suppose while deducting the TDS, I will compute your income first, and then I will compute your tax, and after computing your tax, first I will give you the credit of TDS. If some TDS is deducted by some other person, suppose a bank has deducted some TDS or some other person has deducted some TDS, so I will give you the credit of that TDS first. And the question is, if you have purchased something from somewhere and some TCS is collected by somebody else in your case, then am I supposed to give you the credit of TCS also before finding out the final amount for TDS? The answer is no. The answer is no. What used to happen before 1st October, that is till 30th September 2024, the employer was only liable to give credit of what? TDS. The employer was not liable to give credit of what? TCS. But from 1st October 2024, the government has said that no. The employer has to give the credit of TDS also. Along with that, from 1st October, he has to give the credit of TCS also. But there is a condition which is put over here. But your TDS has to be higher of the following two options. The government has given us two options, and your TDS has to be higher of at least these 2 points. What are these 2 points? Let me explain you. While deducting the TDS, what I will do, option 1. Option 1, I will compute your TDS without including other incomes. It means I will compute your TDS only including the salary income. I will not include your other income. Therefore, I will compute what? I will compute tax on salary income minus house property loss. Only house property loss is allowed to be reduced from here. That too, if you follow the old regime, if you follow the new regime, even house property loss is not allowed. So tax on salary income minus house property loss minus that will be your tax. So first compute tax on salary minus house property. This will get your tax. Out of that, you can deduct your TDS and TCS, and whatever amount is left, that will become your point number 1. Okay. Now point number 2, you will include other incomes also. It means you will include bank income also, you will income lottery also, you will income other income also. Now you will compute tax on salary minus house property loss, that is self-occupied property loss. If you are following old regime, if you are following new regime, that is not allowed. This is not allowed in new regime. This is only allowed in old regime. Plus, you will also add your other incomes declared by the employee. That is your, if you have earned some interest from banks, some dividend from companies, some lottery, etc., casual incomes, you have to add all of them, and then again you will deduct TDS and TCS reported by the employee. This will become your option number 2, and then option number 1 or option number 2, whichever is higher, at least that much TDS has to be deducted by the employer. You will be getting the credit of TCS from 1st October, but the government has given 2 options. At least that much TDS has to be deducted by the employer. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now let's go ahead with the next section, that is 192A, which talks about TDS on Provident Fund. Generally what happens, Provident Fund, if you withdraw within 5 years now, then it is taxable, and if it is taxable, then the employer has to deduct the TDS. So remember that the deduction of TDS is only applicable if the Provident Fund is taxable in the hands of employee. If the Provident Fund is exempt in the hands of employee, there is no need to deduct TDS. Therefore, you will deduct TDS when the employee withdraws within 5 years. Okay. So if it is withdrawn within 5 years, the employer has to deduct the TDS. Who will deduct the TDS? Trustees of the employee's Provident Fund will deduct the TDS. Whose TDS will be deducted? Resident, non-resident, everyone is covered. When it is deducted on payment, it is not payment or credit, whichever is earlier. It is payment. What is the rate of tax? It is flat 10% tax. In case of non-resident, I have told you earlier also, you will include surcharge also if applicable, and cess always. And what is the threshold? If the payment in a financial year is less than 50,000 rupees, is less than what? 50,000 rupees, then there is no need to deduct the TDS. Now one very interesting thing that I would like to tell you all here itself, here it is written less than 50,000. It means, what if it is exactly 50,000? Am I supposed to deduct the TDS? The answer is yes. Now there are very few places where the words like this are used by the government in the chapter of TDS, and at most of the places the government is using the word the amount should not exceed 50,000. The amount should not exceed 1 lakh. That word and this sentence is absolutely different. When the law is writing, the payment should be less than 50,000. It means when the payment is exactly 50,000, you are not supposed to deduct the TDS. But when the law is using the word, it should not exceed 50,000. It means when it is exact 50,000, then also you should not deduct the TDS. Now here what they are writing, it is less than 50,000. If it is exact 50,000, the payer has to deduct the TDS in this case. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one, section 193, TDS on interest on securities. You are purchasing some securities from some companies like debentures, some bonds, etc., some government securities, etc., and the payer will deduct TDS on the interest. Who will deduct TDS? Any person. Whose TDS will be deducted? Resident. What is the timing? Credit or payment, whichever is earlier now. Now it is not payment. In the previous 2 sections it was payment. Here it is credit or payment, whichever is earlier. What is the rate of TDS? It is 10%. Now, there are few cases which you can see over here one by one where there is no need to deduct TDS, no need to deduct TDS. Don't forget this line. We are learning the exclusion. We are not learning when TDS is deducted now. We are learning when TDS is not deducted now. First case, in case of central government or state government security, there is no need to deduct TDS. But there are certain central government and state government security on which you have to deduct TDS. One is 7.75% Government of India Taxable Saving Bond 2018, and one is recently inserted from 1st October 2024. That is Floating Rate Saving Bond 2020 taxable, or any security of central government as may be notified. Okay. So floating rate bond and some other security which the central government will notify, that will also be not liable to TDS from 1st October 2024. This is an amendment made by Finance Act 2024. So by default, central government, state government security, TDS will not be deducted, but there are 2 specific security on which TDS will be deducted, and one general security which will be notified by the government later on in future. I don't know about that. Okay. Second, if you make the payment to LIC or GIC or any other insurer, there is no need to deduct TDS. Okay. Third one contains lot of condition. If you purchase a debenture, condition number 1, of a public company, condition number 2, and if the pay is individual HUF, condition number 3, and if the interest does not exceed 5,000 rupees, condition number 4, and if it is paid by account paycheck, condition number 5. If these 5 conditions are fulfilled, there is no need to deduct TDS. You have to fulfill these 5 conditions. In point number 1 also, in these 2 cases, the threshold is 10,000 rupees. Here the threshold is 5,000 rupees. Okay. Next, in case of National Development Bond, there is no need to deduct TDS. If I purchase a National Development Bond and if somebody is paying me interest, there is no need to deduct TDS. NSC certificate, no need to deduct TDS. 54EC capital gain bonds, Power Finance Corporation bond if I purchase, or Indian Railway Finance Corporation bonds if I purchase, there is no need to deduct TDS. Certain gold bonds which were issued in 1977, 1980, whose nominal value does not exceed 10,000, there is no need to deduct TDS. And last but not least, if any interest is paid to business trust, by a special purpose vehicle, then there is no need to deduct TDS, because if you learn the chapter of business trust, any interest paid by a special purpose vehicle to a business trust is exempt under section 10, and if it is exempt, why there is a need to deduct what? TDS for the same. Okay. Now, there is one common note which is applicable to multiple sections of TDS and some sections of TCS also. 194A, 194C, 194H, I, J, R, S, 206C subsection 1 and 206C subsection 1F. The last two sections are of TCS and the initial 7-8 sections are of TDS. Now, what is this multiple note? First of all, remember, this multiple note is only applicable to individual and HUF payer. It is only applicable to individuals and HUF. It is not applicable to company, firm, LLP, AOP, BOI. It is only applicable to individual and HUF. If I am an individual and HUF, there is some relaxation given to me over here. I will be referring this note again and again in all these sections. Okay. So now what is the relaxation given to me? If I am an individual, if I am an HUF, then I am liable to deduct TDS in these sections only if my last year's business turnover is more than 1 crore or my last year's profession gross receipt is more than 50 lakhs. Otherwise, there is no need to deduct TDS in these sections. So in these sections, there is an additional filter for individual HUF that you have to first check individual HUF's last year turnover is exceeding 1 crore or 50 lakhs or not, and then only you should go ahead with the respective section. If the turnover itself is less than 1 crore or 50 lakhs, these sections are absolutely not applicable to individuals and HUF. Now, this relaxation is only applicable to individuals and HUF. It is not applicable to others. Let's talk about the next section now, 194A, where this note is applicable, as you can see over here. So this note is applicable. Wherever this note is applicable, I'll be writing in the bracket refer note. When I'm saying this refer note, I'm talking about this note only. Okay, be very careful. Now, TDS on interest other than interest on security. Now, we are not talking about interest on security. We are talking about other than interest on security. Who will deduct TDS? Any person. Whose TDS? Resident. When? Credit or payment, whichever is earlier. What is the rate of TDS? It is 10%. Now, there is a long list, around 12 cases in which you are not supposed to deduct the TDS. 12 cases are there in which there is no need to deduct TDS. First point is very big and there are a lot of points in the first point. In the first point, there are a lot of sub points. If I am a bank or if I am a post office or if I am a cooperative bank, then I am not going to deduct TDS if I make a payment up to 40,000 to a person in a financial year. So if I am a bank, if I am a post office, if I am a cooperative bank and you are my customer, and if I make you payment up to 40,000 in a financial year, I am not supposed to deduct the TDS. The threshold is 40,000. And if you are a senior citizen, then the limit is 50,000 for bank, for post office, for cooperative bank. And if I am other than bank, post office and cooperative bank, then the limit is only 5,000, only 5,000. Like if I am an NBFC, then the limit is 5,000 for everybody. 5,000 is for a senior citizen also, 5,000 is for young people also. For bank, for post office and cooperative bank, the limit is 40,000 or 50,000. For others, the limit is flat 5,000 rupees for the entire financial year. Now, the bank will deduct TDS only on time deposit. Always remember this. Time deposit means they will deduct TDS on fixed deposit or recurring deposit. They will never ever deduct TDS on what? Saving bank account. That is also covered as an exclusion in point number 5 over here. You can check over here. Interest on saving bank account is not subject to TDS. Okay. Saving bank account interests are not subject to TDS. Coming to the next point. What is the concept of CBS system? Now, what is CBS system? Core banking solution system. Sir, what is core banking solution system? Suppose there is a bank, HDFC, and there are multiple branches of HDFC bank and all the branches are interrelated to each other. That system is called as core banking solution system. If I open a fixed deposit in Chennai, then the Kerala branch will also get that details. If I open a fixed deposit in Visakhapatnam, then Thiruvananthapuram will also get that information. That is known as CBS system. If the bank is connected through CBS system, then the limit of 40,000 and 50,000 will be counted by making aggregate of all the interest paid by all the branches of that particular bank. HDFC Chennai, you are making one FD, and HDFC say Kochi, you are making one FD. Then the interest will be computed by adding both the branches, and then limit will be checked whether it is crossing 40,000 or not. Okay. Now some exclusions more. We are learning exclusions are where TDS is not applicable. When I pay interest to bank, when I will take a loan from the bank and I will pay interest to the bank, I will not deduct TDS. Check it please. Similarly, when I take a loan from a foreign bank Indian branch, I take a loan from HSBC Indian branch or Standard Chartered Indian branch. even then I am not liable to deduct the TDS. When I pay interest to cooperative bank or any financial corporation by law, LIC, UTI or any company or cooperative society carrying on the business of insurance, I am not liable to deduct TDS. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one, when a partnership firm makes payment of interest to partner, does a partnership firm makes payment of interest to partner? The answer is yes. There is no need to deduct TDS under this section, but when you make the payment to non-resident partner, you will deduct TDS under 195, but from next year onwards, from 1st April 2025, a new section 194T has come, which says that whether you make the payment to resident or whether you make the payment to non-resident, you are not supposed to deduct the TDS. So what is the position in the current year? Let me tell you. In the current year, when you make the payment to a resident partner, there is no need to deduct the TDS. When you make the payment to non-resident partner, you will deduct TDS under 195. But from next year onwards, when you make the payment to resident or non-resident, everybody's TDS will be deducted under 194T only. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now next point is for cooperative society. Now some of the points which are already covered above, I have covered in this chart also, so that we have all the points of cooperative society at one place. Suppose if a cooperative bank makes payment to customer, then whether the bank will deduct TDS? The answer is yes. The limit is 40,000 and 50,000. The bank will deduct TDS, as we have seen over here also. The cooperative bank is liable to deduct the TDS. Okay. Similarly, when a customer makes the payment to cooperative bank, whether the customer will deduct TDS? The answer is no. That also we have seen over here, that when you make a payment to cooperative bank, you are not liable to deduct the TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. Third and the fourth is a special case. When a primary agricultural society or land mortgage cooperative society, these are two special society, they make payment to customer. Okay. Or when a cooperative society make payment to member. Who is a member? A member is a shareholder. Or a cooperative society make payment to another cooperative society. There is no need to deduct TDS. Again, see, when this special cooperative society, primary agriculture land mortgage society makes payment to customer, or society makes payment to society, or society makes payment to member, society, not bank. This is society, not bank. Then there is no need to deduct TDS in these two cases. But in these two cases, if the society is, in these two cases, in point number 3 and 4, if the society is a very large cooperative society, then they are also liable to deduct TDS. So what is the definition of large cooperative society? When their turnover for the last year check, when then their turnover for the last year is more than what? 50 crore rupees. If their turnover for last year is more than, if the point number 3 and point number 4 societies last year turnover is more than 50 crore rupees, then point number 3 and point number 4 society is also liable to deduct what? TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. Fifth point, when a cooperative bank makes the payment to member, then they are liable to deduct the TDS. But when a cooperative society makes payment to member, then they are not liable. When a bank is liable to make the payment to member, then they are liable to deduct the TDS. I hope it is clear. Next one, does income tax department give you a refund? The answer is yes. Do they give you interest on refund? The answer is yes. No need to deduct TDS on interest on income tax refund. But when the department gives refund to non-residents, when the department gives refund to whom? Non-residents, they will deduct TDS under 195. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one, suppose there is some accident happened in your case, unfortunately, and you have filed a case in motor accident claim tribunal, and they have decided to give you some compensation, and they have delayed in giving that compensation, and now they are liable to pay you interest on that. So whether that interest is also covered over here? Yes, it is covered, but for that there is some relaxation. There are two relaxation on interest on compensation from motor accident claim tribunal. What is that relaxation? First, that interest relaxation is the TDS will be deducted if the limit crosses 50,000 rupees. Here the limit is not 5,000, limit is 50,000. Second, here the TDS will be deducted not on credit basis but on payment basis. These are the two relaxations which are given in point number 7. What is the relaxation? TDS will be deducted after 50,000, that is the threshold is 50,000, not 5,000, and the TDS will be deducted on payment basis, not on credit basis. Whether TDS is applicable on interest on zero coupon bond? The answer is no. When a zero coupon bond is redeemed, there is no need to deduct TDS in that case. Whether TDS is applicable on interest paid by SPV to business trust? The answer is no. As I have told you earlier, interest paid by SPV to business trust is exempt, therefore there is no need to deduct any TDS. Okay. Next one is a very specific CBDT circular, that if a particular person is a member of a scheduled tribe, who is he? Is a member of a scheduled tribe residing in any specified area. Okay. I am a scheduled bank and you are a member of a scheduled tribe. You are residing in a specified area which is covered under section 1026. Again listen, I am a scheduled bank, say SBI, and you are a member of a scheduled tribe. You are residing in a specific area. Then in that case, the interest paid by the scheduled bank to that particular scheduled tribe person is not liable to TDS. It is liable to TDS only if the payment of interest exceeds what? Exceeds 20 lakh rupees. Check. It is only liable only if it exceeds what? If it exceeds 20 lakh rupees. Otherwise, it is not liable to TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one, point number 11. Whether the bank gives you interest on a daily basis. No. Bank does not give you interest on a daily basis. Whether the bank computes interest on a daily basis. The answer is yes. The bank computes interest on average daily balances, but the bank does not give you the bank does not give you interest on daily basis. Therefore, the law has clarified, the CBDT has clarified that the bank is not liable to deduct TDS on a daily basis. On a daily basis, they only compute the interest. They don't pay the interest to the customers. Therefore, the TDS will be deducted as per the bank's interval when it is credited to the customer's account, which may be quarterly, which may be half yearly, which may be annually also. So the interest will be, TDS will be deducted when the interest is credited and not when the interest is computed. Last but not least, no TDS will be applicable on Mahila Samman Certificate 2023. Mahila means lady, Samman means respect, and certificate means certificate. So the government has brought one certificate for the respect of women, that if a woman buys that certificate, we will pay you some interest. On that, TDS is not applicable, as you can see over here. I hope it is clear to all of you, this big section. Okay. So let's go ahead with the next section now, which is 194B and BB. 194B is for lottery, etc. and 194BB is for horse race. Both the provisions are same only. That is the reason we are doing both of them together. Lottery, crossword, etc. is covered in 194B and horse race is covered in 194BB. So who will deduct TDS? Any person. Whose TDS will be deducted? Any person. Resident, non-resident, everybody is covered over here, just like salary and PF. When TDS will be deducted? It will be deducted on payment basis, not on credit basis. What is the rate? It is 30%. What is the threshold? It is 10,000 rupees for the entire year. If it crosses 10,000 rupees, you have to deduct TDS 30%. Now remember, in almost all the sections of TDS, the moment it crosses the threshold, you have to deduct TDS from the very first rupee. For example, here, if it crosses 10,000 rupees, suppose you are earning a lottery of 15,000 rupees, 15, then you have to deduct TDS on entire 15,000 rupees and not on only excess 5,000 rupees. In most of the section, you have to deduct TDS on the entire amount, not on the excess amount. There are some sections where you have to deduct TDS only on the excess amount, not on the entire amount. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. Now, suppose the winning is in kind, then what has to be done by the payer? Suppose you have won a car, then how will I deduct TDS from a car? So if the winning is in kind, or if the winning is partly in kind and partly in cash, and cash is not sufficient to deduct the entire TDS, then in that case, the responsibility of the payer is to ensure that the payee pays the tax, gives the proof to me, and only then I will release the winning. So in case of winning in kind, the payer has to ensure that the tax has been paid in respect of the winning. Only then he has to release the winning. Otherwise, he will be called as assessee in default. Okay. Now, let's come to a new section introduced by Finance Act 2024. Finance Act 2023 last year, with effect from 1/4/2023. That is winning from online games. So what kind of online games you are talking about? All these online games which has come now these days, that IPL is coming. You have to play IPL online on Dream 11, Fantasy League 11. You have to put money in the Dream 11 account, and then you have to select a team, and then you will win something out of it. So on that winning, the government will deduct your TDS. How much TDS? When TDS will be deducted? What is the threshold? What is the rate? Everything we are going to see now. So any person means what? Let's take an example. Any person over here is Dream 11. Okay. Now who is the person? Who is the deductee over here? Deductee might be resident. Deductee might be non-resident. The TDS will be deducted for both of them. What is the timing of deduction? This is most important. This is what is changed as compared to the previous section. The timing of deduction over here is, when you withdraw the money from your account, at that time the company will deduct the TDS, and whatever balance is left at the end of the year, at that time also the company will deduct the TDS. So the TDS will be deducted at two times. When you withdraw the money, or at the time of closing balance on 31st March, they will deduct the TDS. How much TDS? 30% TDS they will deduct. So what is the timing of deduction? It is at the time of withdrawal, or as well as at the end of the financial year. Now, how to compute the winning? First of all, we need to compute the winning as per section 115 BBJ. 115 BBJ talks about how to compute the winning, and 194 BA talks about how to deduct the TDS. These are two different sections. Both of them are interrelated to each other. 115 BBJ talks about what? How to compute the winning, and 194 BA talks about what? How to deduct the TDS. So how to compute the winning? First of all, the winning will be computed as per this formula: A plus D minus B plus C. What is A? let's take an example. Suppose your opening balance in your Dream 11 account is 100 rupees, for example, okay? And you have deposited 300 rupees more, okay? So 100 rupees was your opening balance in the account and you have deposited 300 rupees more. So therefore there is total 400 rupees in your account. Now, out of that you have withdrawn 50 rupees. How much you have withdrawn? You have withdrawn 50 rupees, okay? And then your closing balance is how much? Your closing balance is 500 rupees, okay? Now the law says that whatever amount you have withdrawn plus whatever is your closing balance, add both of them first. Therefore A plus D you have to add. Therefore A plus D comes to how much? A plus D comes to 550 rupees. So this is the amount you have withdrawn and this is the amount that you are due to withdraw. You can withdraw anytime because this is your closing balance. You are eligible to withdraw this amount and this is the amount you have already withdrawn. So total 550 rupees you are eligible or you have already withdrawn. Out of that 400 rupees you have put from your pocket only. 300 rupees you have put in the current year and 100 rupees is from last year. Therefore, the difference between these two, that will be 150 rupees. That is A plus D minus B plus C will be considered as your winning. This 150 rupees will be considered as your net winning on which the TDS will be deducted by the Dream 11 company. Now, how they will deduct the TDS? That's what we are going to learn now. They will deduct TDS. For deduction of TDS, the Government of India has made 3 steps. When you withdraw for the first time in the financial year, when you withdraw for the subsequent time in the financial year, and at the end of the financial year on the closing balance. So the TDS will be deducted as per 3 intervals. When you withdraw for the first time, then how the TDS will be deducted? Suppose when you withdraw for the first time, the TDS will be deducted as per a very simple formula, A minus B plus C. What is A? Suppose 100 rupees is there in your what? In your opening balance, okay? And then you have deposited 200 rupees more, okay? So total how much is there in the account? 100 rupees was there in the opening balance, 200 rupees more you have added out of your pocket. You have put 200 rupees, you have loaded 200. The way you recharge your mobile phone now, the same way you have to recharge your Dream 11 account. So you have recharged with how much? 200 rupees. Now at the time of withdrawing, you are withdrawing how much? You are withdrawing 500 rupees. Therefore, how much will be the winning you have earned? 100 rupees you have put. It's very common sense. 100 rupees was already there in the opening balance. 200 rupees you have put it from your pocket. So total 300 is there. But you are withdrawing 500. Therefore, 500 minus these two will be called as what? That is 300, that is 200 rupees. That will be your what? Net winning. And on this net winning, the department will tell you that the Dream 11 has to deduct the TDS on this 200 rupees. Okay. Now we will continue this example only. Pay attention, please. We will continue this example only. That will go to the subsequent withdrawal. Suppose in the subsequent withdrawal, what is happening? Pay attention, please. The opening balance was how much? 100 rupees. And the aggregate deposit was how much? 200 rupees. And the aggregate amount of withdrawn. How much amount was withdrawn earlier? 500 was earlier withdrawn. So now I am withdrawing another 300. So I need to write down 800 over here because I have to write down the aggregate amount withdrawn during the financial year from here. So whatever I have withdrawn earlier plus whatever extra I have withdrawn, suppose 300 extra I have withdrawn, therefore the total amount withdrawn will come to 800 rupees. So I have to write 800 over here. Now what will be the net winning? Plus what is the net winning on which TDS is already deducted earlier? Earlier TDS is already deducted on 200 rupees. So now what is the formula for winning? A. What is A? A is 800 rupees minus B plus C plus E. What is B plus C plus E? It is minus 500 rupees. Therefore, my TDS now and the subsequent withdrawal will be on how much? Now I have to deduct TDS on how much? On 300 rupees. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now at the end of the year, one more step will come. Pay attention, please. We will continue the discussion like this only. The opening balance was 100 rupees. How much I have deposited? I have deposited only 800. What is my aggregate amount withdrawn? See, aggregate amount withdrawn so far is 800. See, 800 I have withdrawn so far. And what is the amount on which I have already paid TDS? See, initially I have paid TDS on 200 on my first withdrawal, and on my second withdrawal I have paid TDS on how much? On TDS on 500. And what is my closing balance? Suppose my closing balance is 1200. Now how to compute the TDS? Now you have to add the aggregate amount withdrawn and closing balance. So aggregate amount withdrawn and closing balance comes to 2000 rupees minus what is B plus C plus D? B plus C plus D, B plus C plus E, this is 800 rupees. So I will reduce 800. Therefore, on 1200 rupees, that is on closing balance, I have to pay tax. On 800 rupees, I have already paid tax. How? Initially, I have paid tax on what? I have paid tax on 500, then 200. I have already paid tax on that amount. So now on 1200 rupees, I have to pay tax. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. So this is how you will compute the TDS in multiple events. First on what? First withdrawal, then on subsequent withdrawal, and then on year end on the closing balance. Okay. Suppose if a person has multiple user account, I am opening 2 Dream11 account, 3 Dream11 account, then I have to aggregate all of them while computing these winnings. Okay. I have to aggregate all of them while computing these winnings. Suppose if a person is earning winning in kind, not in cash, then how TDS will be deducted? Just like the previous section, like lottery only, that in case the winning is in kind, then the TDS will not be deducted by the payer. The payer has to ensure that the payee has paid the tax. There is no other way. The payer has to ensure that the payee has to pay the tax. That's it. That's the only way in which the TDS has to be computed. Okay. There is no other way that the payer can deduct TDS out of a winning in kind. Okay. Next one. Sometime what happens? Suppose my opening balance in the Dream11 account is 100 rupees, and now I'm not using that account for say 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. So just to tempt me, what they do, they put some bonus money in my account. So now they are saying that we are putting 500 rupees in your bank account, in your Dream11 account. Now whether that 500 rupees is also liable to tax, what the Dream11 is putting as a gift to me, as a bonus to me, now that depends upon the law. Says that if that 500 rupees is withdrawable, if that 500 rupees is what? Withdrawable, then it is taxable. But if it is not withdrawable, it can be only used to play the games. There are two possibilities now. The gift which is given, the bonus points which is given by them in the name of 500 rupees, either they can say that you can withdraw that if you don't want to play, or they can say that you cannot withdraw, you can only play with that money, you cannot withdraw that. So the law is very clear. If it is withdrawable, then you have to pay tax on that, and if it is not withdrawable, you have to play the game only with that, you cannot withdraw that money, then you need not have to pay the tax on that. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Next point, number 7. Can I borrow money? Can I take a loan money? Can I take a loan and then put in the Dream11 to play that money? Yes, why not? It is all allowed. There is nothing wrong in that. Even whether you play, whether you put the money, whether you deposit the money in the Dream11 account from your pocket or by taking a loan, the law does not have any difference in that. The law says that in both the cases, you are liable to what? Deduct that much amount from your closing balance. Because what you deduct, you deduct the non-taxable deposit. Now, B is everywhere deducted. See, B is everywhere deducted. So if this deposit is made not from my pocket, but I have taken a loan and deposited in the Dream11 account, whether still I can deduct that? Yes, still you can deduct that. The law has clarified that. Now last but not least, some relaxation given to the assessees. Now if you see the section properly, that there is no threshold over here, unlike the previous section. In section 194B and BB, there is a threshold of 10,000 rupees for the entire year, but here there is no threshold. It means even if you win 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 30 rupees, 40 rupees, the TDS has to be deducted. But here the government has given you some relaxation that TDS will not be deducted if there is an insignificant withdrawal. If the withdrawal is very insignificant, TDS will not be deducted. Sir, what do you mean by insignificant withdrawal? Insignificant withdrawal means satisfaction of the following condition. If you fulfill the following condition, there is no need to deduct the TDS. For example, if the net winning does not exceed 100 rupees in a month, if the net winning does not exceed what? 100 rupees in a month, you are not supposed to deduct the TDS. Suppose this is first month in which I have won how much? I have won 70 rupees and I am withdrawing that 70 rupees. Therefore, there is no need to deduct TDS. Or in the first month, I am earning how much? I am earning 90 rupees and I have withdrawn that 90 rupees, therefore no TDS on that amount. But this is subject to condition. Why there is no TDS? Because the net winning does not exceed 100 rupees. But this is subject to condition. Tax not deducted on this concession is deducted at the time when the exceed 100 rupees. Suppose in the next month, my net winning is, my winning is further increased by 20 rupees. So what is my total winning now? My total winning is 110. Now is the TDS applicable? Yes, applicable. But the TDS is applicable. How much TDS will be deducted? On 110 rupees, 30%. On 110 rupees, 30% is how much? On 110 rupees, 30% is 33 rupees. But how 33 rupees will be deducted by Dream11 when in my bank account there is only 20 rupees? Because 90 I have already withdrawn in the last month. Okay. Listen carefully. In the last month I earned, in the month of April I earned 90. I withdrawn 90. TDS is not applicable because the winning does not exceed 100 rupees. In the next month, I earn another 20 and I withdrawn that 20. So now the company Dream 11 is supposed to deduct TDS of 33 rupees. How will they will deduct TDS of 33 rupees out of 20 rupees? So in that case, the Dream 11 has to take a responsibility of paying the balance tax. Check. That is what it is written. The difference has to be paid by the Dream 11. They have to undertake the responsibility of paying the difference amount from their pocket. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now let's go ahead with the next section, that is 194C, which is one of the most important section of this chapter. That is, we are going to deduct TDS on contracts and subcontracts now. If I take anything on contract from someone, means if I give any contract to somebody and if I make payment for that contract or subcontract, I need to deduct the TDS. Being a payer, I will deduct TDS. Now who is liable to deduct TDS here? Any person. Here also the question of that refer that note is applicable. It means if the payer is individual and HUF, then he is liable to deduct TDS under this section only if the last year business turnover is more than 1 crore or last year profession gross receipt is more than 50 lakhs. Otherwise, individual HUFs are excluded from this particular section. Who is the deductee? The deductee is supposed to be resident. When the TDS should be deducted? Credit or payment, whichever is earlier. What is the rate of TDS? There are two rates of TDS. If the pay is individual or HUF, I will deduct TDS at the rate of 1%. If the pay is any other person like company, firm, LLP, I will deduct TDS at the rate of 2%. What is the threshold? The thresholds are also two over here. First, if the single payment exceeds 30,000 rupees, then I will deduct TDS. But if the single payment does not exceed 30,000 rupees, first payment is 20,000, second is 20, third is 20, then you need to wait when the aggregate payment during the entire financial year exceeds 1 lakh rupees. The moment it exceeds 1 lakh rupees, I have to deduct TDS at the rate of 1% or 2% on the entire amount, not in excess of 1 lakh, but on the entire amount. TDS is always deducted on the entire amount except few cases which will come later on. Now, remember this point is very important, which I am going to say now. If you are an individual and HUF, and if you make a payment for personal purpose, then this section is not applicable. 194C is not applicable for individual and HUF if the payment is made for personal purpose. Let me do some interlinking. 194C is not applicable for personal purpose for individual HUF. 194J is also not applicable for individual HUF for personal purpose, but 194H, that is commission section, is applicable for individual HUF even for personal purpose. This will help you all to understand another section later on, 194M, whenever I will teach you that. Okay. Now, next, sir, what kind of contracts are covered over here? Only work contracts are covered over here. Sir, work contract means what kind of work contract? Service contract, service, where another person is giving you some kind of service and you are making a payment for that service. Only those kind of contracts are covered over here. If you purchase goods from someone and that contract is there, purchase of goods contract, it is not covered over here. That is covered under 194Q, not under 194C. 194C is only applicable to service contract. Sir, whether the term work is defined under income tax law? Yes, it is defined in an inclusive manner. Sir, what does it include? It includes three specific points and one very general point. Let me talk about the three specific points first. First, advertising. If there is an advertising contract, you will deduct TDS under 194C. Broadcasting, telecasting contract, TDS under 194C. Carriage of goods and passengers by any mode except railway. Railway is not covered. If there is a contract with railway belongs to central government. Therefore, there is no need to deduct TDS in case of railway. Apart from any other mode of transport, if you transport any goods or passenger, you have to deduct TDS under 194C. Third one, catering services is also covered under 194C. Now, the fourth point is a very, very general point. This point is applicable to every kind of nature of goods and services. Let me explain you with the help of example. Suppose I want to stitch a shirt. What do I want? I want to stitch a shirt, okay, for myself. So I went to a tailor. The tailor asked me a very important question. Who will provide me the material? From where will I purchase the material? I said, I will provide you the material. You will purchase the material from me only. So I am giving the material to tailor. Tailor is stitching the shirt and giving me the shirt. What is tailor doing over here? The tailor is merely providing services to me. Okay. Therefore, I will deduct TDS of the tailor. Now the question is on how much amount I will deduct the TDS. That depends upon the invoice made by the tailor. If the invoice shows the breakup of stitching charges separately and cloth separately, then I will deduct TDS only on stitching charges as mentioned over here. But the invoice does not show the breakup of stitching charges separately and cloth separately, then I have to deduct TDS on the entire amount including the cloth price. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, let me give you another example. Suppose I went to the tailor and I told the tailor, I want a shirt to be stitched like this. He again asked me the same question. Where is the cloth? From where will I get the cloth? So suppose if he gets the cloth from third party, I told the tailor, you get the cloth from market anywhere from the third party. Now suppose if he is getting the cloth from third party and stitching that shirt for me, now he is not doing service, he is doing sale of goods for me. So because he is doing sale of goods for me, TDS is not applicable in that case under 194C if the material is purchased from other than customer. But in this also there is a catch. There is a catch. If I again go to the tailor and tell I want a shirt, so what I told you, if I provide the material, then he will deduct TDS. If third party provides the material, then I will not deduct the TDS. What about if my related party provides the material? So if I provide the material, TDS is applicable. If third party provides the material, TDS is not applicable. What if someone in between, who is my related party, who is my associated entity as per section 48(2), who is related to me, if that person provide, then whether TDS is applicable? The government has said that the answer is yes. If you provide material or if your associated enterprise provide the material, then also TDS is applicable under 194C. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one is an amendment made by Finance Act 2024 with effect from 1st of October 2024. Now what is this amendment? Let's try to understand. There are a lot of people who are doing what? Who are entering into a professional contract with chartered accountant, with lawyers, etc. And they are saying that we are entering into a contract with lawyers, we are entering into a contract with chartered accountant. But you need to understand these are professional contracts. For professional services, there is already a specific section in the form of 194J. Why the hell you are calling them over here in 194C? 194J says for professional contract, you need to deduct TDS at the rate of 10% over in that section. Why you are dragging those cases over here? So Finance Act 2024 has made an amendment. If there is any professional service which is covered in 194J subsection 1, then that cannot come in 194C. Even if you enter into a contract in case of professional service, that cannot come under 194C, that will go under 194J only. So what is the moral of the story? 194C will not cover professional services. It will only cover those services which are not covered under 194J. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now there is one relaxation given to goods carriage assessees. Suppose I am taking some services from a goods carriage person, that is the truck wala, and if that person does not own more than 10 goods at carriage at any time during the previous year, plus that person gives me a declaration, plus that person gives me a PAN, then I am not liable to deduct TDS, deduct TDS, deduct TDS. So if the goods carriage owner is a small person, he does not have more than 10 goods carriage, he gives a declaration that he does not have more than 10 goods carriage, he gives a PAN that this goods carriage belongs to him, then in that case I am not liable to deduct TDS in that particular case as per 194C subsection 6. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now to explain this, the CBDT has issued a circular explaining certain points. For example, in the month of June, when I made the payment to the goods carriage, that goods carriage person does not have more than 10 goods carriage, so I did not deduct the TDS. Okay. Suppose in the month of July, when I made the payment, another payment, at that time, suppose second payment, when I made the second payment, at that time, for example, the goods carriage owner has more than 10 goods carriage, then am I liable to deduct the TDS? The answer is yes. You are liable to deduct the TDS if the individual payment exceeds 30,000 or if the aggregate payments exceed 1 lakh rupees. So the question is to compute aggregate amount. Should I take that amount also during which the vehicles were less than 10? The answer is yes. To compute 1 lakh rupees, you have to compute all the payment made during the financial year, whether at that time the number of vehicles were less than 10 or more than 10, doesn't matter. Okay. So in the month of July, number of vehicles are more than 10. Now if you make the payment, if the single payment exceeds 30,000 or if the aggregate payment exceeds 1 lakh, I have to deduct the TDS. Suppose in future, again the number of vehicles fell down to 987. Again, say in the month of September, again they sold some vehicle, so the number of vehicles fell down to 789, less than 10. Okay, less than 10. It is not more than 10. So in that case, now am I supposed to deduct the TDS? The answer is yes. Now you are supposed to deduct the TDS because this relaxation is only applicable if you don't have more than 10 goods carriage at any time during the previous year. Okay. So at any time during the previous year, if you don't have the goods carriage, then this relaxation is there. Now for some time during the previous year, you had more than 10 goods carriage. Therefore, you cannot enjoy this relaxation. The next circular is for gas owner and gas seller. For example, I'll explain you this with the help of example also. I am an owner of gas. I supply gas to everybody, and you are a 5-star hotel. Now, if I'm supplying gas to a 5-star hotel, and if that 5-star hotel is providing me some money, is paying me some money, but I am also charging them what? Transport charges. Because I am selling you gas, along with gas, I am also transporting the gas to you. Because of that, I am charging you some amount for gas and some marginal amount for transportation. So whether on that transportation services are you liable to deduct the TDS? The answer is no. CBDT has said that. The answer is no. The CBDT has said that the objective over here of the assessee is not to get transportation services. The objective over here is to purchase gas. Transportation is just an incidental and ancillary activity. Therefore, TDS should not be deducted. But suppose I am a gas owner and there is a third party who is engaged in transportation of gas. We have given them a contract that to everybody's house, to every hotels, you have to go and you have to transport the gas. That is a contract between the gas owner and that delivery agent. Therefore, the contract between gas owner and the delivery agent is with an objective of transportation of services, transportation of gas. Therefore, your TDS will be deducted, as you can see over here. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one, 194D. What does it talk about? It talks about insurance commission excluding reinsurance. This does not cover reinsurance commission. It only covers normal insurance commission. Who will deduct TDS? The insurance company will deduct TDS. Whose TDS will be deducted? Agent's TDS will be deducted. Agent will be getting the commission now for selling the policy. Who will deduct the TDS? Insurance company. Whose TDS will be deducted? Insurance company. The whose TDS will be deducted? Agent's TDS will be deducted. Who will be the agent? The agent will be resident. When TDS will be deducted? Credit or payment, whichever is earlier. How much TDS will be deducted? It is 5%. It is 5%. But if the agent is a domestic company, then the TDS will be 10%. Generally, it is 5%. But if the agent is a domestic company, then it is 10%. Threshold is 15,000 rupees. Okay. Now, from 1st April 2025, the rate is going to change, but that is not relevant for us because that is going to change in the next year. Okay. Next one, 194DA, payment in respect of life insurance policy. First of all, try to understand life insurance policy TDS will be deducted only if it is taxable in the hands of the insurance policy holder, and it is taxable in the hands of the policy holder only if the annual premium exceeds a percentage decided by the government. Do you remember that we have done in class that if the policy is purchased between 2003 to 2012 and if the annual premium is up to 20% of sum assured, then the policy is exempt. Between 2012 to 2013, if the annual premium is up to 10%, then it is exempt. After 2013, if the annual premium is up to 10% for normal person and 15% for disabled person, then it is exempt. So if your annual premium is within the prescribed percentages limit, then it is exempt. If it crosses the limit, then it is taxable. And last but not least, do you remember Finance Act 2023, an amendment has come that from 1st April 2023, if the annual premium for life insurance policy exceeds 5 lakh rupees, then also it is taxable. So if the annual premium crosses the percentage limit or amount limit as the case may be, then you are supposed to deduct TDS. If the annual premium is not crossing the limit and the policy is exempt, if the policy is exempt under 1010D, then there is no need to deduct any TDS under the income tax law. Okay. So first you need to understand this. The TDS is only applicable if the policy is taxable in the hands of the policy holder. Otherwise not. Who will deduct TDS? Any person. Whose TDS will be deducted? Resident. What is the timing of deduction? Payment. What is the rate? Earlier it was 5% of net income till 30th September 2024, but from 1st October 2024, the rate has changed to 2% of the net income. Sir, what is net income over here? Net income means the amount paid by the company minus whatever amount is paid by the policy holder as a premium over the period of years. So you have paid 10 years premium, that you have to reduce from your what amount received. Okay, that will give you your net income. Next. What is the threshold? No TDS if the amount is less than 1 lakh rupees. See, here it is written less than 1 lakh rupees, just like 192A. These are the two sections where it is written less than. When most of the section it is written does not exceed. There is a difference between these two sentences which I have already told you. Next one, 194G. Commission, TDS on commission on sale of lottery. So if the agent is selling some lottery, then the government will deduct the commission of that particular agent. Who will deduct? Any person. Generally, it is the state government who deduct the commission. Who deduct the TDS? Because the state government will give you the commission. Next, whose TDS will be deducted? Resident, non-resident, both are covered over here. What is the timing of TDS? Credit or payment, whichever is earlier. What is the rate of TDS? Till 30th September it was 5%, but from 1st October it is 2%. So there is an amendment made by Finance Act 2024 here also. Again, the threshold over here is 15,000 rupees. Let's come to the third one, 194H. This is general commission and brokerage, which is not covered in the previous section. This does not include insurance commission and commission on sale of lottery. It covers other than these two commissions. Rest of the commissions are covered over here. And here the note is also applicable. It means if you are individual and HUF, and if your last year turnover is up to 1 crore or less than 1 crore, and if your last year turnover of profession is up to 50 lakhs, you don't have to deduct TDS under this particular section. Who is the deductee payee? Payee is resident. When the TDS will be deducted, credit or payment, whichever is earlier. What is the rate? Here also till 30th September the rate was 5%. From 1st October the rate has become 2%. I hope it is clear to all of you. The threshold here also it is what? It is 15,000 rupees only. Now certain specific issues one by one we are going to talk about. Suppose the BSNL or the MTNL is paying some commission to their PCO franchise, whether they are liable to deduct TDS. The answer is no. They are not liable to deduct TDS. CBDT has given a clarification on the same. Secondly, if a company is paying some commission to the employees or employee director, whether they are liable to deduct TDS? No. If the company is making some payment of commission to employee or payment of commission to employee director, it is a part of salary, and therefore TDS will be deducted under 192 and not under this section. Third and the fourth point is one of the most important point on which there is a PGBP adjustment in your total income question. Next one, if I buy or sell some securities, stock market, shares and securities, and I pay brokerage to the broker, whether TDS is applicable. TDS is not applicable on brokerage on shares and securities, but TDS is applicable. TDS is applicable on brokerage on purchase and sale of commodities market. If you purchase and sell commodities in the commodity market, you are liable to deduct TDS, but on stock market you are not liable to deduct the TDS. Be very careful. Next one is whether TDS will be applicable to be, whether TDS is to be deducted by the travel agent. The answer in case of travel agent, the answer is yes. Let me give you an example. With the help of example, I'll explain you this particular point, because this is again a very important point. Rest 2 points are based on this only. Let me give you an example. Suppose there is Indigo airline and I am make my trip, and there is my customer. The customer will come to my website, will book a ticket, say Bombay to Delhi. Say the customer has booked the ticket from Bombay to Delhi. Customer will pay to Make My Trip. Make My Trip will retain its commission. Make My Trip will retain its commission and will give the balance amount to what? Indigo. So whether that retention of commission by Make My Trip is also liable to be TDS, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. All 3 points in different form. All the 3 points in different form are saying the same thing. I'll tell you one by one all 3 of them. First, the travel agent keeps the difference between the airline, the price fixed by the airline, and the price which the agents are unable to sell. The agent is selling, Make My Trip is selling for 12,000, but the base price is 10,000. So the 10,000 rupees will be given to Indigo, 2,000 rupees will be retained by agent. That 2,000 rupees is also subject to TDS. In case of even consignment agent, I am giving some goods of 1 lakh rupees to my consignment agent. Sorry, I am giving goods of 1 lakh rupees to my consignment agent, and I am telling him, sell it for 1,20,000. Keep 20,000 as your commission and give me 1 lakh rupees. So he is selling it for 1,20,000, retaining 20,000 as his commission and giving me 1 lakh rupees. So retention of commission by that person is also subject to TDS check as per this circular of 1991. Very old circular. Next, Director Prasar Bharati versus CIT. This is the case of Doordarshan. Again, there are 3 parties over here. There is Doordarshan over here, which is a television channel. There is an advertising agency over here, and there are brands over here. Now Doordarshan has given contract to this advertising agency that bring advertisement for me. So this advertising agency is contacting different brands, and they are taking the money from brands. They are retaining that commission and giving the balance to what? Doordarshan. Okay. Now in that case, whether TDS will be applicable, the answer is yes. In fact, their agreement itself was saying that it is a commission, and their agreement clearly said that TDS will be applicable on such commissions. Still they have not deducted the TDS by saying that there is no commission directly paid, it is retained by the advertising agency. It doesn't matter. 1991 circular is applicable even today, that even if a commission is retained by any person, TDS will be applicable in that case also. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next section, 194I. Again, any person, when this note will come, this note means what? If an individual and HUF is there, and if the last year business turnover is not exceeding 1 crore, or if the last year business profession gross receipt is not exceeding 50 lakhs, No need to deduct TDS by individuals and HUF. Who is the deductee? Deductee is resident. When TDS will be deducted? Credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Yeah. Whichever is earlier. What is the rate of TDS for plant and machinery? If I take on rent plant and machinery, it is 2%. If I take on rent land, building, furniture and fitting, it is 10%. Okay. Now, what is the threshold over here? It is 2,40,000 rupees for the entire year, and the 2,40,000 rupees is for all the things taken together. For example, if I am taking on rent plant and machinery from you, if I am also taking on rent plant, machinery, furniture, building, land, everything I am taking on rent from you, the limit of 2,40,000 rupees is aggregate of all of them. It is not separately for plant and machinery and separately for land and building. No. Aggregate limit is 2,40,000 rupees. In 194J later on, I am just doing an interlinking. In 194J later on in professional services, the limit of 30,000 in that section 194J has to be seen separately. But here the limit has to be seen by making aggregate of all of them and then checking 2,40,000 is crossing or not. Next, whether TDS is applicable on advance rent, the answer is yes. Whether TDS is applicable on warehousing charges, the answer is yes. Whether TDS is applicable on non-refundable deposit, the answer is yes. Whether TDS is applicable on refundable deposit, TDS is not applicable. On non-refundable deposit, TDS is applicable. Next, whether TDS is applicable on cold storage services. If I want to store something in a cold storage services, whether TDS will be applicable, the answer is yes. But the question is not whether it is applicable or not. It is definitely applicable. The question is it is applicable under which section, whether it is applicable under 194C or 194I. So the court has said that, even CBDT has given a circular by saying that in case of payment of cooling charges, you are not taking anything on rent. Rather, you are taking services of cooling charges, cooling services you are taking. Therefore, TDS will be applicable under 194C and not under 194I. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one is with respect to a deduction which we have not done so far, 80LA. So I'll just read it from here. No payment on lease rental made by lessee to lessor being a unit of IFSC for lease of aircraft for 10 years in which the lessor is claiming deduction under 80LA. So you are a lessor, I am a lessee. You are in IFSC and you are leasing out to me aircraft for 10 years and I am making you payment for that lease. So in that case, you are going to claim deduction under 80LA for 10 years. For 10 years, your 100% profits are deductible. So in that case, the payer is also not liable to deduct what? Not liable to deduct the TDS. Next one, Japan Airlines. What is happening in Japan Airlines? Japan Airlines is landing its plane. Where? In Bombay Airport and making payment of some amount to Airport Authority of India as landing and parking charges. Whether TDS will be applicable in that case, 100% TDS will be applicable. The question is not whether TDS will be applicable or not. The question is whether Japan Airlines will deduct the TDS of Airport Authority of India under 194C or 194I. So again, the Supreme Court of India has held that here the Airport Authority of India is giving multiple services to what? Japan Airlines. It is not only allowing you to land the plane over there or park the plane over there. It is giving you multiple services. Therefore, TDS will be deducted under 194C and not under 194I. Next one by one, I'll try to tell you all of them. Very detailed revision video it is. It is the most comprehensive revision video that you will ever get on YouTube, and especially in English. Even in Hindi, you will not get such a comprehensive revision video, that I can guarantee you. And that too, I try to do it in a very minimalistic time, because my objective is not only to drag the revision video unnecessarily, drag the TDS video for 10 hours. Then what sense does it make? Will you be able to revise that again and again? No. If I drag a TDS revision for 10 hours, will you be able to revise again and again? No. Will you be able to revise the day before examination? No. It is in 15-20 hours we have to complete the entire revision so that it is practical for you to revise that again and again and also revise that before examination. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Some people are revising one topic for 15 hours. What sense does it make? It is of no use. It's a proper batch only then. You cannot watch the batch again and again. Okay, in that also there is no comprehensiveness. Comprehensiveness along with reduction of time is the key in passing CA exams with what? Absolute ease. So coming to the next point, Indus Tower Limited. What is this case law? I have a building. On that building, there is a terrace. On that terrace, I am allowing you to put your mobile tower. And now you are making me payment for that particular use of mobile tower. So whether TDS will be deducted or not? The answer is yes. The court has said that the TDS will be deducted, 100% it will be deducted, and it will be deducted as if it is a use of plant and machinery, and therefore the TDS will be deducted at the rate of 2% under 194I. I hope it is clear to all of you. because it is for use of plant and machinery, and for use of plant and machinery the TDS rate is how much? It is 2%. Next one, whether the limit of 2,40,000 is applicable separately to two co-owners. Suppose there are two landlords, landlord 1, landlord 2. Whether the limit of 2,40,000 is limited separately to both the landlords? Yes, the limit of 2,40,000 is separate to both the landlord. To landlord 1 you can give 2,40,000, to landlord 2 you can give 2,40,000, and in both the cases you need not have to deduct any TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. So let's move on to the next section, that is 194 IA, in which there is a small amendment also which we are going to address in some time. That this section talks about TDS on purchase of immobile property. So if you are purchasing immobile property and if you are a buyer, then you have to deduct TDS under this section. But this section does not cover those purchasers which are covered under 194 LA. 194 LA talks about compulsory acquisition by the government. If government compulsorily acquired, then this section is not applicable. Then the provisions of 194 LA is applicable. Otherwise, for all other cases, 194 IA is applicable. Who will deduct TDS? Purchaser will deduct TDS. Who is the seller? Seller has to be resident. This is very important. If the seller is non-resident, then this section is not applicable. If the seller is non-resident, then deduct TDS under 195. This section is not applicable. When TDS is to be deducted, credit or payment, whichever is earlier. On how much amount and what rate TDS has to be deducted? 1% of the consideration or stamp duty value, whichever is higher. If the consideration is higher, then deduct on 1% on consideration. If stamp duty value is higher, then deduct 1% on stamp duty value. Whatever amount is higher, you are supposed to deduct TDS 1% on that. Acha. Now, when this section is not applicable, this section is not applicable if you are purchasing a rural agricultural land. So if you purchase a rural agricultural land, apart from rural agricultural land, all kind of immobile property, whether land or whether building, everything is covered under this section. Secondly, when this section is not applicable, if the consideration as well as the stamp duty value, both of them is less than 50 lakh, then this section is not applicable. For example, the consideration is 45 lakh and the stamp duty value is 55 lakh, then TDS is applicable on 55 lakhs. But if the consideration is also less than 50 and the stamp duty value is also less than 50, then this section is not applicable. Okay. Now there is one small amendment made over here, that you have to club all the multiple buyers and all the multiple sellers and then find out whether 50 lakh limit is crossing or not. For example, there are two buyers and there is one seller, and there are two buyers and one seller, and first buyer is paying 30 lakhs, another buyer is paying 30 lakhs. Club both of them and check 50 lakh is crossing or not. Secondly, there is one buyer and multiple sellers, one buyer and two sellers. So one buyer is making payment of 30 lakhs to one person, payment of 30 lakhs to second person. Then also club all the sellers and then check whether it is 50 lakh is crossing or not. Okay. This is what it is written in this particular paragraph. Non-resident, if you purchase from non-resident, as I have told you earlier also, you have to deduct TDS under 195. Sir, where should the property be located? Location of property does not matter. The property may be located in Dubai, may be located in London, may be located in New York. It doesn't matter. The seller has to be resident. The property may be located in India or it may be located outside India. Now, one relaxation in 194 IA is you don't have to obtain TAN number in 194 IA. Generally, for deducting TDS, the deductor should obtain a TAN number separately. But in case of 194 IA, there is no need to obtain any TAN number. Next, if I purchase a property and if I make the payment in installments, then when should I deduct the TDS? You should deduct the TDS on every installment and not on the last payment. Okay, you have to deduct TDS on every installment. Okay, next point I have already discussed in the form of an amendment. TDS is applicable whether the seller is selling the house, selling the immobile property in the form of a capital asset or a stock in trade. Moral of the story, even if you buy a property from a builder, you have to deduct TDS under 194 IA. Even if you buy a property from an investor, you have to deduct TDS under 194 IA. 194 IA does not distinguish between a builder and a investor. Next, sir, when you say the TDS has to be deducted at the rate of 1% on consideration or stamp duty value, whichever is higher, sir, what does consideration include? Consideration includes lot of things. Consideration will include all charges in the nature of membership fee. If you are paying some membership fee, include that also. Car parking fee, include that also. Electricity, water facility fee, include that also. Maintenance fee, include that also. Advance fee, include that also. Any other charges of similar nature which are incidental to transfer of immobile property, include all of them in the definition of what? In the definition of consideration, and then check whether 50 lakh or more is happening or not. And if it is happening, you have to deduct the TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one, 194J. Here also the note is applicable that in case of individual and HUF, if the last year business turnover is up to 1 crore and professional gross receipt is up to 50 lakh, no need to deduct TDS. Whose TDS is to be deducted? Resident. Timing, same, credit payment, whichever is earlier. Now there are 5 kind of payments which are covered in this section 5. One is professional fees, one is royalty, one is FTS, fees for technical service, one is non-compete fees, and one is commission, payment to directors over and above salary. There are 5 kind of payments which are covered over here. Now what is the rate of TDS for all 5 of them? See, there are 2 types of rate of TDS over here. First, I will talk about the rate of TDS. Then I will talk about the threshold of TDS. There are 2 types of rate over here in this section. There are 5 nature of payment I have told you. There are 2 rates. One is 10%, one is 2%. Sir, when is 10% applicable? 10% is applicable generally. You need to understand when 2% is applicable. Once you understand when 2% is applicable, the balancing items will be covered under 10%. So when 2% is applicable? 2% is applicable in 3 cases. If you make the payment to call center business, 2% is applicable. If you make the payment for technical service flat 2%. And if you make the payment of royalty, only in one case. For royalty, there is only one kind of royalty which is covered over here, which is for 2%. Rest of the royalty will be coming under 10% category. That is in the nature of consideration for sale, distribution or exhibition of cinematographic films. So in case of call center business, FTS and cinematographic films related royalty, it is 2%. Rest all will be subject to 10%. Okay. Plus one more thing. If you are individual and HUF, and if you are paying any royalty or non-compete fees, for individual and HUF, there is no TDS on royalty and non-compete fees. For individual and HUF, there is no TDS on royalty and non-compete fees. Individual and HUF will deduct TDS on other payments like professional fees, like FTS, and like these 2 points. The rest of the things are not applicable to individual HUF. Now what is the limit? The limit is 30,000. But the limit is 30,000 separately for professional fees, separately for FTS, separately for royalty, separately for non-compete fees. But for payment to directors over and above salary, there is no limit. Even if you make the payment of director over and above salary of 1,000 rupees, you have to deduct TDS at the rate of 10%. I hope it is clear to all of you. You can check it over here. Next is a small relaxation given to certain non-resident. Suppose there is a non-resident outside India who does not have any business connection in India. Now he is availing some services from a chartered accountant or a lawyer or a solicitor general from India. So the non-resident is outside India. He does not have a place of business in India, business connection in India. He is taking some services from these professionals and he is making the payment through banking channel, not through cash. If he is making the payment through banking channel, then that non-resident is not liable to deduct TDS. You can check it over here. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now the next point is linked with 194C, which we have done earlier, and 194M, which we are going to do later. That is individual and HUF. If they are making payment of professional fees for personal purpose, then TDS is not applicable under this section. Even 194C was not applicable for personal purpose, but 194H was applicable for personal purpose. We will talk about this while we interlink with section 194M later. Okay. Now, if you make payment to any sports person, whether to sports person, to Virat Kohli, etc., to umpires, to referees, to coach, trainer, team physician, physiotherapist, event manager, commentator, anchor, sports columnist, all these sports person, whatever payment you make, everything will come under 194J. Okay. But even somebody who is managing IPL events, sports event, if an event management company is managing IPL event, that is sports event, you are making payment for that particular thing, that is also covered in 194J only. But if somebody is managing a award function, a movie award function, then that is not covered over here because that is not related to sports. That will go under 194C. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one is also very important point. Try to understand. There are 4 people over here. There is one person who is a patient who goes to hospital and he gets admitted in a hospital because he is not well. Now after he is well, he is going to be discharged now. He is a Mediclaim. So he is a Mediclaim. The hospital sends all the papers to the medical insurance company. The insurance company sends all the paper to third-party administrator. Third-party administrator will check the genuineness of the claim and will make the payment to hospital. So that payment which is made by the third-party administrator to the hospital for settlement of claim, is TDS applicable? The answer is yes. TDS is applicable in that case also. And one last thing which is there over here, let me talk about that. Suppose there are 3 people over here. I am Mr. A, you are Mr. B, and there is Mr. C also. Okay, I am Mr. A, you are Mr. B, and there is one third person, Mr. C also. And you, Mr. B, is buying some software from Mr. C. Mr. B is buying some software from Mr. C, and while buying the software from Mr. C, you are deducting the TDS. If you are buying from resident, you are deducting under 194J. If you are buying from non-resident, you are deducting under 195. Now you are selling that software to me without any modification. You are selling that software to me what? Without any modification. You are directly buying and selling to me, and you have deducted the TDS and you are giving me PAN also. So now when I make the payment to you, when A will make the payment to B, A will not deduct the TDS. Check it please over here. That is what it is written over here. Next section which we have done with 194 IA, that is 194 LA. What is 194 LA? LA talks about when the compulsory acquisition of property is done by the government. When the government compulsorily acquire your any immobile property other than agricultural land. On agricultural land they will not deduct TDS. On any other immobile property they will deduct the TDS. Who will deduct TDS? Any person. Whose TDS will be deducted? Resident. When it will be deducted? At the time of payment. How much? 10%. What is the threshold? 2,50,000 rupees is the threshold. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now let's come to the next one. To understand the next one, we need to have a link with 194I. When an individual NHUF will not come in 194I. If an individual NHUF does not come in 194I, he will come in under 194IB. To come under 194IB, you have to go out of 194I. If you are not going out of 194I, you will not come under IB. To come under IB, you should be out of 194I, and 194IB is only applicable to individual HUF. So we need to understand when individual and HUF are not covered under 194I. Individual and HUF are not covered under 194I if their business turnover of last year is less than 1 crore, or if their profession turnover is less than 50 lakhs, or if they don't do any business and profession, only they are salaried assessee, or they are house property assessee, they are IFOS assessee. So in 194I, individual HUF can only come if they do business and if their turnover is exceeding the prescribed limit. So if their business is not exceeding the prescribed turnover limit, or if they are not doing any business, then individual NHUF will come under 194IB. So this is where you need to understand this first of all. Individual NHUF not covered under I will come under IB. Whose TDS will be deducted? Resident. The landlord has to be resident. How much TDS will be deducted? Till 30th September, the rate was 5%. From 1st October, the rate has become how much? The rate has become 2%. Sir, when TDS has to be deducted, timing of deduction is very important over here. In this section, the TDS has to be deducted not every month. Generally, we pay rent every month only. But in this section, TDS will not be deducted every month. It will be deducted in the last month, in the month of March. Or if you vacate the property before that, say if you vacate the property in the month of December, so in the month of December, you are supposed to deduct TDS for the entire year together once and for all. For example, the rent per month is 60,000 rupees. So what is the threshold of rent? That also need to be seen. If the rent is up to 50,000, no need to deduct TDS. It means the TDS has to be deducted only if the rent exceeds how much? Please tell me. Only if the rent exceeds 50,000 rupees. Now let's take an example. Suppose the rent per month is 60,000 rupees. Okay. So I'm making you payment of what? 60,000 rupees per month. Now every month I will make the payment of 60,000. I will not deduct any TDS. Now in the last month of March, okay, I will deduct TDS for the entire year together from the last month's rent. What is the last month's rent? It is 60,000. What is the entire year rent? It is 7,20,000 rupees. 60,000 into 12. So multiply by, now the rate has become 2% from 1st October. So 2% of 7,20,000 comes to 14,400 rupees. In the last month, I will deduct 60,000 minus 14,400 and pay the balance to the landlord. This is how you are supposed to deduct the TDS. In this case, in the last month or in the month in which you vacate the property, whichever is earlier. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Sir, what if the other person does not give the PAN? Generally, if the other person does not give the PAN, you have to deduct TDS at the rate of 20%. But here it is not 20%. Here it is 20% or rent of last month, whichever is lower. Okay. So it is what? 20% or rent of last month, whichever is lower. That's what it is written in point number 2 over here. Plus here also, just like 194 IA, there is no need to obtain any PAN. There is no need to obtain any TAN. You need to just fill a form by the number called as form 29QC. If you fill form 29QC, there is no need to fill any kind of form after that. There is no need to take any kind of TAN after that. I hope it is clear to all of you. Is it clear? So let's go ahead with the next section. Next section is 194M, and 194M is also applicable only to individual and HUF. It is not applicable to every assessee. And 194M is applicable if you do not fall under 194C, 194H or 194J. So if you come under 194C, H and J, then don't come here. First priority has to be given to those 3 sections. If you don't fall under there, then you can come over here under 194M. Okay. Now the question is, when we do not come under 194C, 194J and 194H, let us try to see that. An individual and HUF will not come in 194C and J because of 2 reasons. First reason is If the last year turnover is less than 1 crore in case of business and in case of profession, it is less than 50 lakh rupees. And one more reason because of which I have been saying that again and again in the preceding part of this video, that 194C and 194J is not applicable to individual and HUF if they put the money, if they give the money for personal purpose. So because of these two reasons, 194C and 194J is not applicable. Now 194H is not applicable, not because of two reasons, but 194H is not applicable because of only one reason. And that reason is because of the turnover of last year is less than 1 crore and it is less than 50 lakhs. So it is up to 1 crore and up to 50 lakhs. And 194H is applicable because of personal reason. Okay. So because of personal reason, you will not come out of 194H. You will remain in 194H. Yes, because of turnover reason, you can come out of 194H. So if you do not come under 194C or under 194H or under 194J, then you will come under 194M. And in 194M, the threshold is the payment has to be more than 50 lakh rupees for work contract or for commission or for profession or for aggregate of all three of them. Then the TDS will be 5% till September and 2% from October. Till September 30th, it is 2%, it is 5%, sorry. And from 1st October, it has become 2%. Okay. Now, here also, you don't need to any file, you don't need to take any kind of TAN number, only fill a form just like 26QD. That is much more than enough. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next section, 194N, TDS on cash withdrawal from bank. So, if I am as a customer, I am going to bank or I am going to cooperative bank or I am going to post office. And I am a customer. Who is the customer? The customer is any person, resident, non-resident, doesn't matter. And if I go to bank and if I withdraw money from bank, then the bank will deduct TDS. When they will deduct TDS, listen carefully. If I withdraw more than 1 crore rupees in a financial year, then bank, post office or your cooperative bank will deduct TDS at the rate of 2%. Okay. 2% on what amount? On excess of 1 crore rupees. Okay. For example, I go to a bank and I withdraw 1.5 crore rupees from a bank. The bank will deduct TDS of 2% on 50 lakh rupees, not on entire 1.5 crore. Now, this limit of 1.1 crore rupees has been increased to 3 crore if the customer is a cooperative society. What? If the customer is a cooperative society, the limit is how much? The limit is 3 crore instead of 1 crore. So, in case of cooperative society, the TDS will be deducted if the withdrawal is more than 3 crore. And this is one of the exceptions where TDS is not deducted on the entire amount, but it is only deducted on the excess amount. Can you see this? If I withdraw 1.5 crore rupees, then TDS is deducted at the rate of 2% only on 50 lakh, not on entire 1.5 crore rupees. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, for some people, the limit is very stringent. It is strict. It is very strict for some assessees. Which are those assessees? If the assessee has not filed the return for all the last 3 years, the word all is very important here. If for all the last 3 years, if the customer has not filed the return for which the due date is not yet, for which the due date under 139(1) is expired, the due date of last 3 years have expired and the assessee has still not filed the return of income for the last 3 years. In that case, the limit has been changed. In that case, for normal customer, up to 20 lakhs, no TDS. Above 20 lakhs, up to 1 crore, 2%, and above 1 crore, 5%. And for cooperative society customer, up to 3 crore, no TDS. Above 3 crore, up to 20 lakhs, no TDS. And above 20 lakhs, up to 3 crore, it will be 2%. And above 3 crore, it will be 5%. Okay. I am again saying, for normal customer, up to 20 lakhs, no TDS. For cooperative society, up to 20 lakhs, no TDS. For normal customer, above 20 lakhs, up to 1 crore, 2%. For cooperative society, above 20 lakhs, up to 3 crore, 2%. For normal customer, above 1 crore, 5%. For cooperative society, above 3 crore, 5%. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, this section is not applicable to certain people. Who are those people? If a government withdraws from bank, then it is not applicable. If bank withdraws from bank, then it is not applicable. Cooperative bank withdraws from bank, not applicable. Post office withdraws from bank or post office or cooperative bank, not applicable. Or the banking correspondents of the bank, they withdraw from the bank, then also it is not applicable. When a white label ATM operators or a cash replenishing agencies withdraws from the bank, then also not applicable. Sir, what are white label ATM operators? What are cash replenishing agencies? Now, these are the people. White label ATM operators are the third party ATM operators who runs ATM on behalf of a bank. If a bank does not want to open its own ATM everywhere in the country because it's a lot of investment, heavy investment it is. So therefore, the bank gives that to other party. That is outsourcing. Okay. So if the bank has outsourced the ATM to some third party, and for that purpose, the third party white label ATM operators are withdrawing from their bank and putting the money in ATM, then TDS is not applicable in that case. Okay. Next. It is not applicable if there is a registered commission agent or trader operating under Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee and withdrawal is made for what purpose? For purchasing agriculture products from the farmers. Okay. It has making the withdrawal for the purpose of making payment to the farmers. Then also TDS is not applicable. Okay. So commission agents which are registered commission agents, they are withdrawing money from the bank and they are using that money to buy some agriculture product from the farmers. TDS is not applicable for them. And last but not least, it is not applicable to authorized dealers who are engaged in full-fledged money changer, who are engaged in purchasing foreign currency or selling foreign currency from whom? From foreign tourists visiting India, or from residents Indian who return to India from foreign tour, or somebody who is sending money from foreign to India as an inward remittance. Suppose my father is staying there, my father is sending some money in India. They will send only to an authorized agent. They cannot directly send to me. Okay. If they are sending through an authorized agent, then that will be subject to what? The authorized agent is allowed to withdraw cash from the bank. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. So this is what this small section is all about. So now let's move ahead to the next section, which is a big section, but a very important section. A very small amendment has also been made by Finance Act 2024 in this particular section. This section talks about e-commerce operators. Now this section talks about deduction of TDS by e-commerce operators like Amazon. First of all, you need to understand certain terms. E-commerce operator is like Amazon, who has a website like Flipkart and Amazon. And who is an e-commerce participant? E-commerce participant is a seller who sells goods through Amazon. Okay. And then there are customers like us who buys goods from Amazon. So now what is the treatment over here? The government has said that the Amazon will deduct TDS of the seller if the seller is resident. Okay. Who will deduct TDS? Amazon. Amazon is what? Amazon is e-commerce operator. Who is seller? Seller has to be resident. What will be the seller? Called as technically e-commerce participant. Now how much TDS Amazon will deduct? Amazon will deduct 1% TDS till 30th September. From 1st October, the rate has been substantially reduced to 0.1%. Okay. So now from 1st October, the Amazon will deduct how much TDS? Only 0.1%. Now on how much amount Amazon will deduct TDS? That is also important. Amazon will deduct TDS on gross amount, not on the net amount after commission. For example, I am a customer. I went to Amazon. I bought a phone of 50,000 rupees. Now I paid 50,000 to Amazon. Now Amazon is deducting say 5,000 commission, paying 45,000 rupees to whom? To the seller. Now while deducting the TDS, Amazon has to deduct TDS on 50,000 only, including the commission amount. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now what if the seller does not give a PAN? Generally, if the payee does not give a PAN, the payer has to deduct TDS at 20%, but in this case it is only 5%. Remember, okay, in this case it is not 20%, in this case it is only 5%. Now this is what first point is all about. Now let's talk about the second point. For example, I went to Amazon website, I bought a product, but while making the payment, I directly made the payment to the seller. Is it possible? Now on Amazon it is not possible, but on certain other websites it is possible that you can directly make the payment to whom? You can directly make the payment to seller. Now in that case also, is the Amazon liable to deduct TDS? The answer is yes. The law says that if the customer directly makes the payment to seller, in that case also it is deemed that Amazon has credited the payment to the seller and Amazon will be liable to deduct the TDS. Check it please. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now third point has given some relaxation to small individual and HUF seller. If you are an individual or HUF seller and if the total sale is up to 5 lakh rupees in the financial year, how much? The total sale is up to how much? It is up to 5 lakh rupees in the financial year, and the seller is giving PAN or Aadhaar as a proof, okay, that he is the required seller. Therefore, in that case, the Amazon will not deduct TDS of such kind of seller. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Next point, step by step, every point I'm going to cover here comprehensively. It's a revision video, I agree, but still in a revision video we are going to cover everything comprehensively, 100% English for you all, for my dearest students who wants to learn direct tax in English. Don't worry about it. Okay, once a transaction is subject to TDS, in point number 1 or 2, or subject to exemption in point number 3, no other TDS under any other provision of the act shall be charged. Okay, so once a transaction has been subject to TDS under 194O, then if it is also liable to be deducted under any other section, then also you should not deduct TDS under any other section. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one, but this relaxation, this rule is not applicable to certain people. Who are those people? Suppose if Samsung comes to Amazon and tells Amazon that I want to do advertisement of my product on your Amazon app, and for that Samsung pays some money to Amazon, so that will be subject to TDS. Check it please. Hosting of advertisement, if it is done by Amazon, then that will be subject to TDS. That is specifically mentioned over here. Sir, in 194.0 only goods are covered or services are also covered? Goods are covered and even some services are covered which are mentioned in 194J. All services are not covered. Goods are all covered. All goods are covered. But when it comes to services, only specified services like FTS and professional services which are mentioned in 194J, only those services are covered. Rest of the services are not covered in this particular section. Okay. Now, 194O is not applicable in certain cases. When it is not applicable, even 194Q and 206C1H, which we will be seeing later, these two sections are also not applicable in two circumstances. First, if you do transaction in securities and commodity in a IFSC, where you do transaction of security and commodity in International Financial Services Center, or if you do transaction in securities, electricity or renewable energy certificate. So if you do transactions in electricity or renewable energy certificate, then also 194O is not applicable. Next one, point number 7. I will explain you this with the help of example once again. Suppose I am a customer. I went to Amazon. I like a phone. The phone is of 50,000 rupees. So I made the payment through my credit card. Now the question is, when I made the payment through my credit card, did the payment went to Amazon directly? The answer is no. Always remember, the payment does not directly go to Amazon. First, it goes to a payment gateway. Like say for example, Razorpay is one of the most famous payment gateway in country. So the payment will go to Razorpay first. And then Razorpay will give what? Will cut its commission and will give the balance amount to Amazon. I hope it is clear to all of you. So the payment will first go to whom? Razorpay. And then Razorpay will deduct its commission and then Razorpay will give it to Amazon. So now the question is, when Razorpay makes the payment to Amazon, is Razorpay also liable to deduct TDS under 194O? And the answer is no, subject to a condition if Amazon has deducted the TDS. Check please. See, payment gateway will not deduct TDS if tax has been deducted by Amazon. I hope it is clear to all of you. So if Amazon has deducted the TDS, then payment gateway is not liable to deduct the TDS on that particular transaction. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next point, every point I have to explain you step by step. Don't be in a hurry. Next point. Suppose I went to a website by the name called as policybazaar.com. I want to buy a term insurance which is for next 25 years and I like one policy. So I purchased that policy. I paid the premium. Suppose that policy is of what? Tata AIG policy. I purchased through policybazaar.com, which is an aggregator. So I went to policybazaar.com, selected the best policy. They have given me 20 policy. Out of that, I selected Tata AIG policy and I purchased that policy. I paid the premium. Whether TDS will be deducted? The answer will be yes. The policybazaar.com is an e-commerce operator. While making the payment to whom? While making the payment to Tata AIG, they will deduct TDS. Now, next year, I will directly, I am a customer. Now, next year, I will not go to policybazaar.com. Next year, I will directly make the payment to whom? I will directly make the payment to whom? I will directly make the payment to Tata AIG. So, in that case, will the TDS be liable to be deducted by the policybazaar.com? And the answer is no. In this case, the government has given an exemption that next year onwards, if the customer is directly paying the insurance premium to the company, then the aggregator is not liable to deduct TDS in that case. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. Now the 9th point is a big point in which there are 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What is 9th point? This talks about e-auction services. Sir, what is e-auction services? E-auction services is nothing but a website where you can come, there is a buyer, there is a seller, and there is a website. That website will be called as an e-auctioneer. I am the one who is conducting the auction. So I will be called as e-auctioneer. And there is a buyer who wants to buy something. There is a seller who wants to sell something. The seller will put the things on auction. The buyer will bid on that and the things will go ahead. Now in that case, whether the e-auctioneer is liable to deduct TDS, because the e-auctioneer is also working like and what? Like an e-commerce operator. So the e-auction services are not liable to TDS subject to 6 conditions. Condition number 1, the e-auctioneer only conduct e-auction services and it is only responsible for price discovery. It is only responsible for discussing the price between two people. It is not responsible for anything beyond that. The price need not be the price at which the transaction plays. So suppose the price discovered between the buyer and the seller is 1 lakh rupees. It is not necessary to mandatorily conduct the transaction at the same price. The buyer and the seller can independently meet each other and do the transaction out of the e-commerce operator cycle. Okay. Third one, the transaction of buyer and seller takes place directly. The transaction will not take place through my website like it is taken place in case of Amazon. The transaction will be taken place directly between the buyer and the seller. Fourth, the e-auctioneer is not responsible for purchase and sale of goods. I am not responsible whether the buyer seller has transferred the goods or not, whether the buyer has made the payment or not. I am not responsible for all those things. Next, the payment are carried out directly. The payment will be directly done by buyer and seller between them. I am only responsible for point number one. Remember that. I am only responsible for one thing, that is for price discovery. Rest all transactions will be done out of my cycle. Last but not least, for payment to e-auctioneer, the client deduct tax under the relevant provision. Yes, I will take some commission from both of you, and both of you have to deduct TDS under 194H, because that is only the relevant section under which commission for TDS for commission is applicable. Okay. So moral of the story, e-auction activities are not subject to TDS if the e-auctioneer is restricting itself only to price discovery. Rest all things will be done outside the cycle of e-auction. Okay. Therefore, this is what these 6 points are, what it is all about. And if you fulfill these 6 points, you are not liable to deduct TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, last but not least, whenever we will learn 194Q and 206C1H, you will understand this point also. But I am saying it right now only. If there is an e-commerce operator, if there is an e-auction services, there is a buyer, there is a seller. If the buyer is buying goods of more than 50 lakh rupees, if the seller is selling goods of more than 50 lakh rupees, then the provisions of 206C1H and 194Q may apply. Yeah? That you cannot escape. I hope it is clear to all of you. Is it clear? So the next part of this particular section is a very important CBDT guideline which came in 2023-24 only, which talks about a very important development made by the Government of India in the form of ONDC. What is ONDC? ONDC stands for Online Network Digital Commerce. Now what happens in this case, the government has developed one single website where multiple buyers can come and multiple sellers can come to a common website. For example, I am a customer, you are a seller. Okay, listen carefully, the example is very important, otherwise you will not understand this entire scheme of ONDC network. I am a buyer, you are a seller. I am going to Amazon to buy something. Now if I like something, the website will take me to the government's ONDC network, where I will find out 10 different websites that this product is available for 1000 rupees on Amazon, 1500 rupees on Flipkart, 2000 rupees on Snapdeal, 800 rupees on some other website. So as a buyer, I will have multiple options that even though I am buying from where? I am buying from Amazon, but I can see at which all places this product is available at a better quality, better price, better discount, better offers. So I can directly go to that website and then click on that website and buy it. So let's take an example. I am a buyer. I am going to Amazon.com to buy a phone. Now when I click on Amazon.com to buy a phone, Amazon will be called as buyer side e-commerce operator. What it will be called as? It will be called as buyer side e-commerce operator. Now, the moment I am clicking on the phone, that is taking me to Flipkart. Why? Because Flipkart has a better price. Now, Flipkart will be called as a seller side e-commerce operator. So, I am buying through Amazon, but ultimately the delivery is made by whom? The delivery is made by the Flipkart seller. So, Flipkart will be called as seller side e-commerce operator. And in that case, I will make the payment to Amazon. Amazon will make the payment to Flipkart, and Flipkart will ultimately make the payment to whom? To the seller. So in this entire transaction, multiple people will make payment to multiple people. Who will deduct the TDS? That's what it is clarified over here in this CBDT guideline. The very first thing the CBDT has explained over here is we need to check there are two situations possible. First, if I buy through Amazon and Amazon make the payment to Flipkart and Flipkart make the payment to seller, then Flipkart will deduct the TDS of seller. Okay. But sometime it is possible that Flipkart itself is the seller. Flipkart itself is the seller. The product belongs to Flipkart itself. The product does not belong to the seller of Flipkart. The product belongs to the Flipkart itself. So in that case, the TDS will be deducted by the Amazon itself. So listen carefully. Situation 1. If the seller side e-commerce operator in our example, it is Flipkart, is not the actual seller. Seller side e-commerce operator is not the actual seller. The actual seller is some other person. Then the seller side e-commerce operator will deduct the TDS. But if the seller side e-commerce operator, it means the Flipkart itself is the seller. The Flipkart itself is the seller. Then the compliance under 194O will be on the buyer side e-commerce operator. That is, it will be on whom? It will be on Amazon. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. Now, the next issue which they have clarified over here, which is obviously clarified earlier also, inclusion of several other fees on the gross amount. We all know that TDS under 194O is applicable on the gross amount. Gross amount including of everything, convenience fee, commission, logistic charges, delivery, etc. Gross amount means everything has to be included in the price and the gross amount will be subject to TDS. That's what it is written over here. Okay. Next one. What is the treatment of discount over here? What will be the treatment of discount under 194O? Now that also is a very interesting part. Now remember, I am a buyer, you are an e-commerce operator, that is the seller. Now if the seller is selling the product for 100 rupees, now if the seller is saying, the e-commerce operator, that you can sell the product at 80 rupees also, but the discount has to be borne by you. Who will bear the discount? The e-commerce operator will bear the discount. The seller is saying that 100 rupees product, I want full 100 rupees. I am not going to bear any expense of discount. So in that case, the TDS has to be deducted on 100 rupees completely, because the seller is not ready to bear that particular expense of discount. But if the seller is ready to bear the expense of discount, the seller is telling the e-commerce operator that 100 rupees is the price of the product. You can sell for 85 or 90 rupees and you can pay me 85 and 90 rupees after reducing commission. So if the seller is ready to bear the discount, then in that case the TDS will also be deducted on amount after the discount. I hope it is clear to all of you. That's what it is written over here. You can check it over here. Okay. Now, last point but not least, no TDS if lump sum commission is paid by e-commerce participant to e-commerce operator. Suppose I am a seller, you are Amazon, and I am telling you that Amazon, see, on every product I cannot give you commission. I will give you a commission of 3 lakh rupees for 1 quarter, 12 lakh rupees for the entire year. I'll give you commission of 3 lakh rupees for 1 quarter, 12 lakh rupees for entire year. If you are ready to sell my product, sell it, or else don't sell. So if I give you a lump sum commission, then this provision is not applicable. Then the provision of 194O is not applicable. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now next section, 194P. It is for certain specified senior citizens. If certain specified senior citizens fulfill certain conditions, they are not liable to file the income tax return. Now who are those lucky people? First of all, that specified person should be resident individual who is of the age of 75 years or more. Second, that person is earning only interest and pension from any specified bank. Both should be earned from the same bank. The interest should also be earned from the same bank. The pension should also be earned from the same bank. If he is earning interest from another bank and pension from another bank, then this condition is violated. Sir, what is specified bank? Specified bank is a scheduled bank which is appointed as an agent by RBI. Okay. Next. So if you are a resident individual HUF, 75 years, you are earning interest and pension from the same bank. Sir, which interest? Saving interest, FD interest, RD interest, all kind of interests are covered. Okay. Then you have to give a declaration to the bank that I earn only this much. I don't earn any other income. The bank will deduct your TDS. Whether you want to follow old regime or new regime, the bank will consider all the provisions of the income tax law, chapter 6A, 87, rebate, everything will be considered by bank, and bank will deduct your TDS. Once the bank will deduct the TDS, then you are not liable to file the return as per section 139 subsection 1. You are relieved from filing the income tax return. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. Now the next section we will discuss along with the provisions of 206C1H. So this we will discuss at the end of this chapter. Don't worry, today only we will revise this. But this has a link with 206C1H. Therefore this has to be done together only. So as of now I am keeping this on hold. Okay. Now let's move on to the next section, which is a big section on 194R, TDS benefit, TDS on benefit or perquisite relating to business and profession. So if I am giving you some benefit or perquisite in any business and profession, then I will deduct TDS. Who will deduct TDS? The giver will deduct the TDS. So who is the deductor? Any person other than individual and HUF whose last year turnover is less than 1 crore or whose last year gross receipt is less than 50 lakh. That note which is applicable na 194A, 194C, 194H, I, J, that is applicable here also. So small individual and HUFs are not liable to deduct TDS over here. Now whose TDS you will deduct? Residence TDS you will deduct. When you will deduct? Before releasing the perquisite. What is the rate of TDS? Rate of TDS is 10%. Okay. Now what is the threshold? The threshold is 20,000 rupees for the entire year. Okay. So if you give a benefit of up to 20,000 rupees in the entire year, no need to deduct TDS. The benefit crosses 20,000, you have to deduct the TDS. Okay. Now, what if the benefit is partly in cash and partly in kind? What can be done? See, I have already told you, if you give any benefit or perquisite in kind or partly in kind, partly in cash, then you cannot deduct TDS out of it. In that case, you have to ensure that the tax has been paid by the other person. Okay. Just ensure that the tax has been paid by the other person. Now, whether I am supposed to check whether the benefit and perquisite is taxable in the hands of the other person under section 28(4). No, you are not supposed to check all those things. You are just supposed to see if you are giving any benefit or any perquisite to any person in business and profession and the other person is resident, you have to deduct TDS. You don't have to check whether that benefit or perquisite is classifiable under section 28(4) or whether it is classified under under section 41. Subsection 1. You don't have to do all those analysis and judgment. Okay. All those things has to be checked in section 195. In section 195 later on we will see while deducting the TDS you have to check whether the income of the other person is chargeable to tax or not. In this section, it is not required. Whether the benefit of perquisite can be cash in kind, yes, it can be cash or kind. Whether the benefit can be capital and revenue, yes, it can be capital and revenue. Okay, the benefit can be capital, the benefit can be revenue, it doesn't matter. Whether the benefit can be considered to be a discount given to customer or a rebate given to customer or a cash discount given to customer. Suppose if my customer comes to me and buys this bottle for 80 rupees instead of 100 rupees because I am giving him discount of 20 rupees. So am I giving a benefit of 20 rupees to my customer? You are giving a benefit of 20 rupees to your customer, but that is not subject to TDS as per this section. Read point number 6. No TDS on sales discount, on cash discount, on rebate. Similarly, if a customer comes to my office, comes to my shop, and if he buys any product and if I give him free product out of that, say if he buys 5 product, I give him 2 product free. There are some offers now in the mall also, in the shopping malls also, in many shops also. Buy 5, get 7. Buy 10, get 12. So that 2 extra, you are paying for 10 and you are getting 12. You are paying for 10, you are getting 12. The 2 extra which you are getting, am I supposed to deduct TDS on that? The answer is no. TDS is not applicable on that also. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one. But TDS is definitely applicable on the following cases, but these are only illustrative in nature. Such as if somebody gives cash as a gift, car as a gift, TV as a gift, computer as a gift, gold chain, mobile phone, etc. TDS is applicable. If somebody sponsors a trip for a sasi or his relative, okay, upon achieving certain target, TDS is applicable. If somebody provides you free ticket of IPL or some award functions, etc., or Coldplay concert, I am giving you a free ticket for the same, then that is also benefit and perquisite. When somebody gives you a free sample for medical practitioner, I am a pharma company, I am giving you a free sample, you are a medical practitioner, TDS is applicable in that case. Now listen carefully, this is very important issue. This free sample by pharma company to medical practitioner, you need to understand the different scenarios over here. There are 3 scenarios over here. First, suppose I am a pharma company and you are a doctor. Now, pharma company provides free samples worth rupees 5 lakh to doctor who is an employee, very important, employee of an hospital, Talavati. In this case, the benefit and perquisite is provided to doctor on account of him being the employee of the hospital. So the pharma company is required to deduct TDS under 194R of the hospital. So I am pharma company, you are doctor. And doctor is an employee of the hospital. Doctor is the employee of the hospital. So I am giving the medical free samples to doctor on behalf of the hospital only now, in the capacity of the hospital. I am not giving it to doctor. I am giving it to hospital because the employee is working in that hospital. So I will deduct the TDS of what? Of the hospital under 194R. And in exchange, the hospital will deduct the TDS under 192 as the perquisite given by hospital to the doctor. The perquisite, the hospital is giving perquisite in the form of free samples to the doctor. So therefore, the hospital will deduct TDS of doctor under section 192. Check it please. That's what it is written over here. Now second possibility. What is the second possibility? The doctor is not employee. The doctor is the consultant of the hospital. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. The second possibility is what? The doctor is a professional. The doctor is independent. The doctor is not employee. In that case, what has to be done? The pharma company will deduct TDS of hospital and hospital will deduct TDS of doctor. Okay. So 2 times TDS under 194R will apply. First, pharma company will deduct TDS of hospital and then under 194R, and then hospital will also deduct TDS of doctor under 194R. But alternatively, they can do one thing. The government has said that the pharma company can directly deduct the TDS of 194R of doctor also. Rather than deducting the TDS under same section twice, the pharma company can also directly deduct the TDS of doctor. Third, this provision of 194R is not applicable if the benefit of perquisite is being provided to government entity. Like if this pharma company is giving such free samples to whom? To government hospital, not carrying business and profession, then there is no need to deduct any TDS. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. So there are 3 possibilities. In first case, the doctor is an employee. Second case, the doctor is independent professional. Third case, the hospital is government hospital, no TDS. Okay. Next one, how to value the benefit? I am giving you a phone. So how will I value that phone? That depends upon whether I have purchased that phone and given you and whether I have manufactured that phone and given you. If I have purchased that phone and given you, then the purchase price will become the value. If I have manufactured that phone and given you, then it becomes the value will be the price at which I will sell that to my customer. If I have manufactured that phone and then I have given you, then that time the value will be the price at which I have what? I will sell it to my customer. That is what it is written over. In both the cases, I will not include the GST portion because when I purchase or when I manufacture and when I sell it to customer, obviously the price will also include the GST and therefore the GST will not be included over here. I hope it is clear to all of you. Point number 11. Suppose a company is there and there is a social media influencer and the company is giving some phone to social media influencer for reviewing that phone. Whether that will also be considered to be a benefit or perquisite given in business and profession. Now that depends upon. If the reviewer returns the phone after review, after the review, the reviewer returns the phone, then TDS is not applicable. But if the reviewer keeps the phone after reviewing the phone, the reviewer keeps it with himself, then the TDS will be applicable as per point number 11. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one, what is the treatment of out-of-pocket expenses? First of all, we need to understand what is out-of-pocket expenses. Let's take an example of a chartered accountant. I am a chartered accountant, you are my client. Now you are telling me to come to audit and your place is out of Bombay. I stay in Bombay, you are in Chennai. So you are telling me to come to Chennai and do audit. For that purpose, I need to travel to Chennai first of all. I need to book hotel in Chennai. Okay. There are other food expenses, other expenses, related day-to-day expenses which I have to incur. So all these expenses are called as out-of-pocket expenses. So I am a chartered accountant, you are my client, you have told me to come to Chennai for doing an audit. So I am coming to Chennai, I am incurring all the expenses, flight expenses, hotel expenses, food expenses, and you will be reimbursing me. So whether that benefit which you are given me in the form of reimbursement of what? Out-of-pocket expenses, whether that is also benefit or perquisite in business and profession, that depends upon the invoice of these expenses is in whose name. If the invoice of these expenses of stay, hotel and other expenses is in the name of client, then it is not a benefit and perquisite. I am doing it for my profession, I am not doing for my personal benefit. But if the invoice of this particular transaction is in my name or it is in the name of any other person, then you have to deduct my TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. So the entire catch is on whose name the invoice is. Okay. Next point is a very big point and a very important point for your examination also. Lot of time, lot of companies keeps a dealer and customers conferences. Suppose I am a company by the name called as say Tata Motors. So I will keep my dealers conference to explain them lot of things. And that dealer conference might be in 5-star hotels, it might be abroad also. So whether I am giving you all these benefits for dealer conferences, whether that will be subject to TDS or not, let's see. The expenditure pertaining to dealer or business conference would not be considered to be benefit. In case it will not be benefit or perquisite. If the company is giving some benefits to the dealer in the form of a dealer conference, they are giving hotel, tickets, food, beverages, no TDS if in case the conference is for new product launch. If the conference is kept for new product which are launched and the company wants to explain its dealer, discussion as to how our product is better than others. If the conference is about obtaining orders from dealers and customers, if the conference is about sales techniques, is about addressing queries to the dealers and customers, reconciliation of accounts. So if it is for all these purposes, then there is no need to deduct TDS. But remember, the conference should be for every dealer and it should not be for selected dealers. Check. It should not be to select dealer. It should be for every dealer and every dealer. And in that case also, in some cases TDS will be applicable. Which are those cases? Be very careful with this. If the company is giving a dealer a leisure trip or leisure component is there, then that is subject to tax. Suppose if a company is giving a dealer a very different kind of service as compared to what it is given to other dealers. Suppose the company is giving a dealer a business class or a presidential suite in a hotel worth ₹1 lakh per night. Then that is a leisure trip and that will not be subject to exemption, that will be subject to TDS. Similarly, if the company is giving the benefit to family members of the dealer, then that will also be subject to TDS. Okay. Similarly, if today is the conference, you can come one day before, you can go one day after. But before that, if you have come and after that, if you are staying, that will be subject to TDS. Be very careful. If today is the conference, if 15th is the conference, you can come on 14th, you can leave on 16th. But if you are coming from 10th and leaving on 20th, then all these days will be considered to be what? Except 14, 15, 16, all these days will be considered to be benefit and perquisite in your hand and TDS will be applicable. I hope it is clear to all of you. Only on the day on which the conference is there and the day prior and the day after will be exempted. All other days will be subject to TDS. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next, whether the waiver or settlement by bank, scheduled bank, of loan, cooperative bank, public financial institution, that is not treated as benefit or perquisite and hence no TDS are required to be deducted. Okay. Then an embassy, a high commission, legation, etc. Those people are not required to deduct TDS under this section. Last but not least, if the company is issuing you bonus shares, then that is also not subject to TDS. In case of a right shares held by the widely held company to all shareholders are also out of this section. Okay. So bonus shares not subject to TDS. Even right shares by widely held companies are not subject to TDS. Now last point is not applicable for this section. Unfortunately, it is applicable to the previous section 194Q. So whenever I will be dealing with 194Q, I will discuss with that point also. Okay. Don't worry. Now let's go on to the next section, that is 194T, which is a very freshly introduced section. But remember, this section is applicable from 1st April 2025 and therefore no need to deduct any TDS in financial year 2024-25. No TDS is applicable in 24-25. Now what is What is this TDS all about? This TDS is applicable to partnership firms. Partnership firm will also include LLP also. If a partnership firm is paying remuneration, salary, interest, bonus, commission to its partner, then TDS is applicable. So who will deduct TDS? Firm. On what TDS will be deducted? Remuneration, salary, interest, bonus, commission. TDS will not be deducted on share of profit because share of profit is exempt in the hands of the partner. Who will be the deductee? The partner. Partner will be resident, non-resident. Both partners are covered over here. When TDS will be deducted? TDS will be deducted at the time of credit to the partner account or at the time of payment to the partner, whichever is earlier. How much TDS will be deducted? 10%. What is the threshold? Threshold is 20,000 rupees, and 197 and 197A are not applicable, means the partners cannot give lower deduction certificate. Partners cannot give Form 15G and 15H. That is not possible for the partners to give. Now, the most important catch over here is point number 3. Listen carefully. The TDS has to be deducted on every remuneration and every commission and every salary and every interest and every bonus given to the partner, whether or not it is taxable in the hands of partners or not. For example, if the partner is giving 10 lakh rupees to the firm, partner is giving 10 lakh rupees as a capital to the firm, and the firm is paying 2 lakh rupees as an interest to the partner. So how much interest the firm is paying? Firm is paying 20% interest. But we all know only 12% is allowed as a deduction in the hands of the firm, and therefore that 12% will only be taxable in the hands of partner. So if you are giving me 10 lakh rupees, I am giving you 2 lakh rupees, 1 lakh 20 will be allowed as deduction, 1 lakh 20 will be taxable in your hands, and 80,000 will be exempt in your hands, and 80,000 will be disallowed in my hands. But the catch is here now. While deducting the TDS, you are not going to see all these things. While deducting the TDS, you will deduct TDS on entire 2 lakh rupees interest, whether or not that interest, remuneration, salary, commission, bonus is taxable in the hands of partner or not. You are not supposed to see all those things. I hope it is clear to all of you. This is the dangerous point which is given over here. Now, coming to the next part, here we complete almost all the sections of TDS except one section 194Q, which we are going to see along with 2061H. Now, some miscellaneous provisions. Let's talk about them one by one. First, Section 196. There are some people to whom if you make the payment, no need to deduct any TDS. First, if you make the payment to government, no TDS. If you make the payment to RBI, no TDS. If you make the payment to mutual fund, no TDS. If you make the payment to corporation established under any central act whose income is exempt, no need to deduct any TDS. Okay. Next one, Section 197 talks about lower deduction certificate given by the payee. Suppose I am a payer, you are a payee, and if you feel that your income is below basic exemption limit and you are not liable to tax, or you are liable to tax at a lower rate, what you can do, you as a payee, I will not do anything. Payer has nothing to do in this. Everything has to be done by the payee over here. The payee can go to assessing officer. Payee will go to assessing officer and explain that to the assessing officer that his income is below basic exemption limit, and the assessing officer will give the payee a lower deduction certificate. That certificate you will give me, and then accordingly I will not deduct your TDS, or I will deduct your TDS at a lower rate. But for that, to get this benefit, you need to have a PAN. If you don't have a PAN, then you will not get the benefit of this particular section. Similarly, in 197A is also similar to 197 only. It is easier for you to operate 197A. It is difficult for you to operate 197 because in 197 you need to go to the assessing officer, take the certificate from him. It's a tedious task to take a certificate from the assessing officer. You know the behaviors of the assessing officer in the income tax department. Therefore, the easier task is 197A. What is 197A? You are payee, I am payer. You can give a declaration of lower deduction or no deduction to me in form 15G and 15H. 15G, 15H is a self-declaration which will be given by the payee to the payer, and accordingly the payer will not deduct the TDS. Okay. But this is only applicable for certain sections of TDS. Like it is applicable for interest from security. It is applicable for interest other than security 194A. It is applicable for recognized provident fund 192A. It is applicable for life insurance policy 194DA. It is applicable for rent 194I. It is applicable for insurance commission 194D. It is only applicable for these 4 to 5 sections. It is not applicable for everyone. Again, here also the payee has to give the PAN. If PAN is not given, then the benefit is not available. Further, this benefit is not available to company. This benefit is not available to firm also. Okay. So company and firm cannot give this declaration under section 197A. 15G and 15H cannot be given by company. Further, this benefit cannot be given by any person other than senior citizen. It means a non-senior citizen cannot give this benefit if all incomes exceeds the taxable limit but his total income is nil. It means if I am a young person, I am not a senior citizen, I am young, and if my total income is 4 lakh rupees, and after taking all chapter 6 deduction, it is below 3 lakh rupees, it is below taxable limit, then I cannot give this. If my total income, it means if my gross total income exceeds all these incomes, I don't have an option to give this particular benefit to the payer. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Is it clear? Next, section 198. This is a small section in which there is a small amendment also. Now, what is this section all about? Suppose if I pay you 10 lakh rupees. Now, while paying 10 lakh rupees, suppose if I am deducting 10% as tax, as TDS. So I am paying you ultimately how much? I am crediting in your bank account 9 lakh rupees. 1 lakh rupees I am paying to the government of India as your TDS. Okay. Now, whether that 1 lakh rupees which I am paying to the government, whether that is your income or not, the answer is yes. The TDS is a part of income, definitely. Whatever the TDS is deducted by the payee has to show that as an income. That's what it is written over here. Okay. Now, similarly, if a TDS is deducted outside India, okay, when a TDS is deducted outside India, for which you are claiming what? For which you are claiming credit under the Income Tax Act, under Section 90 or Section 91. If a TDS is deducted outside India and you are claiming TDS credit under the DTAA relief, under the income tax law, whether you are going to get whether you have to gross up that income also while computing the income, the answer is obviously yes. If a tax is deducted outside India, suppose in London you have earned some income and the authorities in the London have deducted your tax and therefore you are resident in India, whether you have to show that particular tax as your income in India, the answer is yes. You have to gross up that also. This was missing in the law. So Finance Act 2024 has fixed this particular problem. Okay. Now, let's go to some procedural sections one by one. What is the time limit for filing TDS and TCS quarterly returns? You have to file TDS returns 4 times in a year. You have to file TCS returns 4 times in a year. What is the due date? For 30th June quarter, TDS return has to be filed by 31st July. TCS return 15 days before that, that is by 15th of July. For 30th September, 1 month after that, 31st October and 15th October for TCS. For 31st December, it is 31st Jan and 15th Jan. And for 31st March, it is 2 months after, that is 31st May and 15th of May. Once you file this TCS return or TDS return, do I have an option to rectify it? Do I have an option to give a correction statement? Earlier it was not there, but with effect from 1st April 2025, that is from assessment year 25-26, yes, you can give a correction statement, but not after the expiry of 6 years from the end of the financial year in which the TDS or TCS returns are required to be delivered. If the TCS and TDS returns are required to be delivered in financial year 24-25, then you cannot give 6 years end from, you cannot give after 6 years from the end of this financial year. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Now next, what are the consequences of TDS default? What is the consequence of default in paying and deducting TDS? And what is the consequence of delay in paying and deducting TDS? Let's talk about default first. Default means you are not deducting only, you are not paying only. Delay means you are deducting, you are paying, but you are doing late. You are doing it, you are deducting it, you are paying also to the government of India, but there are some slight delays. Sometimes you are deducting after 15 days, sometimes you are deducting, sometimes you are paying after 1 month. So you have to pay the requisite interest to the government of India. But default means you are doing a larger sin. Delay means you are doing a smaller sin. Accordingly, the consequences are also dependent on that. First of all, if there is a default in deducting or paying what? TDS, then the assessing officer will send you a show cause notice under 201 subsection 1 declaring you as what? As assessing in default. He will charge interest at the rate of 1% under section 120 and all other related consequences will apply on you from section 220 to 226. Along with that, he will also impose penalty. He will do recovery against you if you are treated as assessee in default. Okay. Now to declare you as an assessee in default, he will also pass an order. He will also pass an order and accordingly he will declare you as assessee in default. Okay. Now, what if there is a delay in deducting? If there is a delay in deducting, then you have to pay 1% interest per month under section 201 subsection 1A or part of the month. For every month there is 1%. If there is a delay of 1 day also, you have to pay 1%. If there is a delay of 1 month and 1 day, you have to pay 2%. Okay. Now there is also a delay in paying TDS and TCS. Whether if you delay in deducting, if you delay in paying TDS, then it is 1.5%. So very simple. If you delay in deducting, then it is 1%. If you delay in paying, then it is 1.5%. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Sir, whether both the interest 201 and 201(1)(a) both can be applied? No. The law has said that both interest cannot be applied. Once an interest under 220 is imposed, then the interest under 201 subsection 1A will not be imposed on you. Okay. So don't worry about it. The AO cannot impose both the interest on you. Okay. Now there was one assessee by the name called as Sun Outsourcing Solutions Private Limited. Now what was the argument made by this assessee? The argument made by this assessee was that genuinely I have forgotten to deduct the TDS. Please escape me. Please give me relief under 201 subsection 1A. Please. I failed to deduct the TDS because I was not sure about whether I am supposed to deduct TDS or not. I have not done it deliberately. So if an assessee has not done deliberately, can he escape from the interest under 201(1)(a)? The court has said no. Whether you have deducted, whether you have failed to deduct it genuinely or whether you have deliberately failed to deduct, it automatically gets attracted. 201 subsection 1A will automatically get attracted even in the bona fide cases where you have not deducted the TDS. That's it. Your chapter is closed the moment you fail to deduct the TDS. Don't try to explain whether you have genuinely failed or whether you have deliberately failed. It doesn't matter, all those things. Okay. Now, what is the penalty penalty for failure to deduct TDS. The penalty for failure to deduct TDS is given under 271C. That will be imposed by the Joint Commissioner of Income Tax if you fail to deduct the TDS or fail to pay tax under the proviso to 192B. So what is proviso to 192B? Do you remember that? In case I am giving you winning in kind, then I have to ensure that whether you have paid the tax or not. That is mentioned in proviso to 194B. So in that case, if I don't ensure and directly give you the winning without ensuring whether you have paid the tax or not, then the penalty under 271C will apply. So penalty under 271C will apply on not deducting the TDS or on not ensuring whether the other person has paid the tax or not. Who will impose? Joint Commissioner will impose. How much penalty? It will be equal to tax not deducted or not paid. So whatever is the amount of tax, that much amount will be imposed on you as a penalty. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Now there is one amendment over here, that the order which is passed under 201 subsection 3 declaring you as assessee in default for not deducting TDS or not paying TDS, and 206 subsection 7A declaring you as assessee in default for not collecting TCS or for not paying TCS. For that the government has given a time limit that they shall pass an order at any time after expiry. They shall not pass an order at any time after expiry of 6 years from the end of the financial year in which the payment was made or credit is given or tax was collectible, or 2 years from the end of the financial year in which the correction statement is delivered, whichever is later. So there are two time limits they have given by which the AO has to pass an order. The AO cannot pass an order after expiry of 6 years from the end of the financial year in which the payment is made or credit is given or tax is collectible. This is the first time limit. And the second time limit is 2 years from the end of the financial year in which the correction statement is delivered. Which correction statement? This correction statement we are talking about, whichever is later. So the AO has two time limits, 6 years or 2 years, whichever is later. He cannot go beyond that. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Now one last thing in TDS, after that we will jump to what? The provisions of TCS, which is also very important for your examination. Now what is TDS? Last part. There are some fees which are imposed under 234E and there are some penalties which are imposed under 271H. Now what is this fee? This fee is applicable for what? This fee is applicable if you fail to file the TDS return on time. What? If you fail to file this TDS return on time or TCS return on time, you are liable for a fee of 200 rupees per day. For every delay of every day you'll be liable for a fee of 200 rupees per day, but that fee cannot exceed the amount of TDS and TCS, and you have to pay the fee while filing the TDS and TCS return. If you want, you can go to CBDT and request them. They will waive your fee. They have the power to waive your fee under 234E. They have the power to do that. Now what is the penalty under 271H? Penalty under 271H is because of two reasons. One reason is same as 234E and one additional reason is also there. First reason is same. See, failed to file the TDS and TCS return, so that was mentioned here also. Second, if you file the return and if you give incorrect information in that, you are filing the return on time, but you are not giving correct information, then also 271H is applicable. Now how much penalty is applicable here? 10,000 rupees to 1 lakh rupees will be imposed by the assessing officer. But if you want to get escape from this penalty, you have to fulfill certain conditions. First, pay the TDS and TCS, condition number 1. Pay the interest, condition number 2. Pay the fee under 234E, this left hand side fee 200 rupees per day, whatever is the fee, pay that. And file the TDS and TCS return within 1 month. Earlier it was 1 year, but Finance Act 2024 has made an amendment that now you have to file it within 1 month, not after 1 year. Okay? I hope it is clear. Earlier it was 1 year, now you have to file within 1 month. If the due date is July 24, you have to file by August 24. Then only you will get the relief from what? Relief from 271H penalty. Otherwise, you have to pay the 271H penalty. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now let's go ahead with the next part, and that is TCS. Very important point for your examination. TCS has become very important in the last few years because the government has done great development in the chapter of TCS in the last 3-4 years. Now there are 5 categories of TCS. We are going to talk about all of them one by one. The first category is covered under section 206C subsection 1. The main section remains same, 206C, and there are various subsections in that, and the first subsection is 206C subsection 1. Who will collect TCS? Seller will collect TCS. From whom TCS will be collected? From buyer TCS will be collected. When TCS will be collected? At the time of debiting or at the time of receipt, whichever is earlier. Now under this section, TCS is collected when at the time of debit in the books of account or at the time of receipt, whichever is earlier. On which items TCS are collected under this section? On 7 items TCS are collected under this section as follows: alcohol for human consumption 1%, tender leaves 5%, timber obtained under a forest lease 2.5%, timber obtained by any mode other than forest lease 2.5%, any other forest product not being timber or tender leaves 2.5%, scrap 1%, and last but not least, mineral, that is coal, lignite and iron ore. Only these 3 minerals are covered over here, which is subject to 1% TCS. Now we need to understand the meaning of certain terms, like what do I mean by seller? Now seller means everybody is covered over here except if you are individual and HUF, and if your last year turnover for business is up to 1 crore, and if your last year profession turnover is up to 50 lakh rupees, then you are not covered under this section to collect TCS. Otherwise, all other sellers are covered. So small individuals and HUF are excluded from TCS over here. Now, what does buyer include? Buyer is also defined under law. Buyer will also include every kind of buyer, but certain buyers are excluded from here. If the buyer is a public sector company, no need to collect TCS for these 7 items. If the buyer is a central government, state government, club, embassy, high commission, consulate, trade representative, these are all embassy people. If you sell to these people, then there is no need to collect TCS. Plus. If the buyer buys these goods for personal consumption, then also there is no need to collect any TCS. What? If the buyer buys these goods for what? Personal consumption. His personal consumption. He's going to a restaurant to drink something, to have a chill night, to have a chill evening, to relax his mind. So in that case, don't collect TCS from him. Okay? Because he's coming to consume alcohol for his personal consumption. Okay? Now. Next one is also related to this particular section only. Suppose I am a buyer. Suppose I am a seller, you are a buyer. Now, you are a resident buyer. First of all, you are a resident buyer. I am selling you these items, these 7 items. Now, you are telling me that you are buying these items not for trading, but you are buying these items for 2 purposes. First, you are buying this item for manufacturing, or you are buying this item for what? Generation of power, not for trading purposes. And you are a resident. You are a resident buyer. Then I am not supposed to collect TCS, not supposed to collect TCS. But if the buyer fulfills the conditions mentioned in 194Q, which we will see after some time, then the buyer is liable to deduct TDS under 194Q. The seller will be relieved from 206C subsection 1, but the buyer will be liable to 194Q if the conditions of 194Q are fulfilled. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. 194Q we will see later on after some time. Now, the second TCS, which is applicable to what? Certain services. What services? I am giving on lease or license to you certain items. I am giving on lease to you certain items. That are 4 items I am giving you on lease. I am giving on lease parking lot to you. I am giving on lease toll plaza to you. I am giving on lease mine to you. I am giving on lease quarry to you. These 4 items I am giving to you on lease. Okay. Who are you? You are any person other than public sector company. If you are any person other than public sector company, and if I am giving you on lease these 4 items, I will collect TCS at the rate of 2% of such amount at the time of debit again, or at the time of receipt, whichever is earlier. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Third one. 206C subsection 1F. In this, what I am selling you. In this section 206C subsection 1F, I am selling you a motor vehicle whose value is exceeding 10 lakh rupees. Okay. Now, in this section, I will collect TCS at the rate of 1% on X showroom price. What is X showroom price? I'll explain you in a while. And I will collect this at the time of receipt. In this 1F, there is no concept of debit or receipt, whichever is earlier. In this 1F, you have to collect the TCS only on receipt. In the previous 2 sections, you have to collect TCS on debit or on receipt, whichever is earlier, but not in this section. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now listen carefully, please. I will collect TCS only if I sell you motor vehicle, and if the value of the motor vehicle is more than 10 lakh rupees. Which value? X showroom price. What is X showroom price? X showroom price is the price of the vehicle plus GST. That's it. X showroom price will not include insurance. X showroom price will not include, say, for example, RTO and registration. X showroom price will not include accessory prices. All these prices are not included in X showroom price. Okay. Plus. This section is not applicable to certain cases. If a manufacturer is selling the car to dealer, this section is not applicable. Plus, if you are selling the car to RBI, this section is not applicable. This you can write in your book. In some books it is not written because this amendment has come later on. If you have taken the books quite earlier, then this point was not written. So please mention this point in your book. Okay. So if you are selling to RBI, this section is not applicable. They have put this green portion in the form of a separate notification very recently, which is applicable for your exam also. Next, this section is not applicable if I am a seller, you are a buyer, and if I sell you 8 vehicles of 8 lakh rupees each. How much vehicle I am selling you? 8 vehicle of 8 lakh rupees each. Total how much I am selling you? I am selling you a vehicle of 64 lakh rupees. Total is 64, but you are not supposed to see the total value of the vehicle. You need to see the value of the individual vehicle. If the value of individual vehicle exceeds 10 lakh rupees, then only this section is applicable. Otherwise, this section is not applicable. The threshold of 10 lakh is separately applicable for every vehicle. If you sell 8 vehicles or 10 vehicles of 6 lakhs or 8 lakhs each, if it crosses 10 lakh, it doesn't matter. This section is not applicable. Next, this section is not applicable if the buyer is a central government, just like the previous section. The buyer is a state government. The buyer is an embassy person. The buyer is a local authority, or the buyer is a public sector company which is engaged in the business of carrying passengers. So if the buyer is a public sector company, state government authority who is engaged in public transportation, if you are selling motor vehicle to them, TCS is not applicable in that case. Now, one very interesting point which has been added by Finance Act 2024 over here, that from 1st of Jan 2025, that is from this year onwards, the government has said that the TCS under 206C1F will also be applicable to any other luxury goods. It will be applicable to what? Any other luxury goods which the government will notify. The government has not notified anything. Whenever they will notify, at that time I will come to know. Maybe they will put some watches over there. Maybe they will put some bags over there which are very expensive, etc. So all those things might also be subject to what? TCS under 2061F if the value of that particular any other goods which the government will notify exceeds 10 lakh rupees. Now, this is applicable from 1st of April 1st of Jan 2025, and again, if you sell this to RBI, then this section is not applicable. Okay. Now, coming to the fourth TCS, which is one of the most important TCS for your examination and very recently introduced in last 1 to 2 years. This section, that is 206C subsection 1G, covers two things. First, you are remitting some amount outside India for some purposes. Second, you are giving some money to a tour operator for a foreign tour. So these are two separate things. Don't mix both of them. Both of them have a separate limit. Both of them have a different TCS rate. So don't mix both of them. So first we will learn the amount which you remit outside India under the liberalized remittance scheme. How much TCS is applicable in that case? First, if you are sending money outside India for education and that money is out of the loan from a financial institution as defined in ATE, that is that money you are set for condition number 1, you are sending the money outside India under liberalized remittance scheme for education purpose, and that money is out of a loan taken from a financial institution in India, then for up to 7 lakh no TCS in the entire year, and above 7 lakhs the TCS will be just 0.5% TCS will be applicable. I hope it is clear to all of you. Sir, I am sending money outside India for education and I have taken loan from my employer. Then whether I am covered over here? No. You have to take a loan from a financial institution in India, not from your employer or from your friend or from your relatives. No. You have to take it from the financial institution in India. Second case. If I am sending outside India for education, other than above, it means now I am sending outside India for education from my personal saving, or if I have taken loan from my friend, which is not covered in financial institution, or if I'm sending money outside India for medical, then the limit is up to 7 lakh no TCS. Above 7 lakh I have to collect TCS of what? 5%. Okay, so if I send 10 lakh rupees outside India, on 7 lakh no TCS, on 3 lakh rupees 5% TCS has to be collected by the authorized dealer. Third one, any other case other than these 2 points, up to 7 lakh no TCS, above 7 lakh the authorized dealer has to collect TCS at the rate of how much? At the rate of 20%. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now these are one single part. These three are part of one and the same thing, same ecosystem. Now the next one, overseas tour package program, this is a separate thing. You are sending money outside India for what purpose? You are buying some tour operator, you are buying some tour from a tour operator for a foreign tour, not for Indian tour. This is for foreign tour. This is not for Indian tour, this is for foreign tour. Then in that case there is no exemption. First of all, up to 7 lakhs 5% and above 7 lakh a higher rate of 20% TCS will be applicable in that case. So if you are going out of India for some roaming somewhere, say in London, and you are paying 10 lakh rupees to a tour operator, so on 7 lakh you will collect 5%, on 3 lakh you will collect 20%. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Now when the TCS is collected under this section, the TCS is collected on debit or credit, whichever is debit or receipt, whichever is earlier, just like the first two TCS section. In first two TCS section also TCS was collected on debit or receipt, whichever is earlier. Sir, if I go to foreign country and swipe my international credit card, whether TCS will be applicable on that also? The answer is no. If you go to foreign country and swipe your international credit card and if you pay some money outside India, that is also, sir, remittance outside India only. Indirectly you are sending money outside India through a swipe of credit card. But fortunately for all of us, TCS is not applicable in that case. Next point, no TCS to be collected by authorized dealer if the seller has already collected the TCS. So if the seller has already collected the TCS will not be applicable in that case. Similarly, this provision shall not apply if the buyer is liable to deduct TDS and the TDS has been deducted. So if the buyer is liable to deduct the TDS and the buyer has deducted the TDS, then you should not collect the TCS. I'll give you an example. I am a company, you are an authorized dealer, or I am a company, you are a tour operator, and I have a contract with you. I have a contract with you that my employees go outside India for research purpose, for the purpose of company. I am a company, you are a tour operator, and I have a contract with you whereby my employees go outside India for the purpose of some research, for the purpose of business. So when I make the payment to you for an overseas tour package and program, I deduct TDS under which section? Under 194C I deduct the TDS because I am making a contract payment to you. Therefore I am liable to deduct the TDS. So if the buyer is liable to deduct TDS and buyer has deducted the TDS, then the seller is not liable to what? Collect that is the authorized dealer or the tour operator is not liable to collect the TCS from me. I hope it is clear to all of you. Similarly, if the buyer is central government, no TCS. State government, again same people which were covered in the previous section also. If the buyer is a non-resident who is visiting India, So if a buyer is coming to India for a visit and he is booking some tour to Sri Lanka, he is booking some tour to Nepal, or booking some tour to Bangladesh, or booking some tour to Dubai from India. So in that case, if a non-resident is visiting India, then 206C1G is not applicable to him. I hope it is clear to all of you. Sir, the limit of 7 lakh, is it separately applicable for education, medical? No. It's a combined limit for medical, education and for other purpose. Suppose in the first month, in the month of April, I have sent 7 lakh rupees for medical purpose. Then no TCS. But in the next month, again I am sending 7 lakh for education purpose, TCS will be applicable, because the limit of 7 lakh is a combined limit for all the services taken together. I hope it is clear to all of you. Is it clear? Now, the next issue is the limit of 7 lakh is from the remitter's point of view, or it is from the dealer's point of view. So the CBDT has clarified that the limit of 7 lakh is from the remitter's point of view and not from the dealer's point of view. Be very careful. Suppose I am one remitter and you are one dealer, say HDFC Bank. I came to you in the month of April and I remitted 7 lakh rupees for some purpose. So you will not collect TCS. Now next month what I will do, I will go to ICICI Bank and I will tell ICICI Bank that I am a very fresh person. I have not done anything like this earlier, and I will remit another 7 lakh to ICICI. Then in the next month I will go to Kotak Bank and I will remit another 7 lakh to Kotak Bank. You cannot do this. So 7 lakh limit is applicable not from the dealer's perspective but from the remitter's perspective. Now the question is, how will the department come to know? The department will not come to know about this. The CBDT has said that we are framing some mechanism whereby the earlier remittance will be reflected in everybody's system the moment you put the PAN number. They have not made any system so far. Whenever they will make, I don't know. But as of now, what has to be done? Suppose in the month of April I went to HDFC. I remitted 7 lakh. HDFC will not collect TCS. Now in the next month I am going to ICICI Bank and remitting another 7 lakh. So it is my duty, it is the remitter's duty to give a declaration to ICICI Bank that earlier how much remittance I have made under the income tax law. The same is the case for tour operator also. I have to give a remittance. I have to give a declaration that earlier how much tour operator payment I have made earlier, so that above 7 lakh how much TCS is applicable on tour operator. It is 20%. I hope it is separate. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next point, whether the threshold is 7 lakh is separately applicable for LRS and separately applicable for OTPP. The answer is yes. The TCS, the threshold of 7 lakh is separately applicable for LRS. In LRS up to 7 lakh there is no TCS. In overseas tour package and program up to 7 lakh there is a lower TCS of 5%, and above 7 lakh there is a higher TCS of what? 20%. Okay. Next. Suppose if I send money outside India under LRS, but if I tell the government that I am sending outside India under LRS for the purpose of foreign tour, so there is an overlapping concept. If I am sending money outside India under LRS, but for the purpose of foreign tour, whether it will be treated like LRS or whether it will be treated as OTPP, the CBDT has further clarified in point number 8. If a money is sent outside India under LRS for the tour operator purpose, for overseas tour package and program, it will be treated as overseas tour package and program, and you have to pay higher TCS as per the OTPP concept. Okay. Next one, if I send money outside India for medical treatment, or if I send money outside India for education purpose, we all know there is a lower TCS. So now the question is, what do I mean by medical treatment? Medical treatment will include which all expenses? First, medical treatment will include expenses of purchase of ticket for patient and for one attendant also, and his medical expenses also, and also his day-to-day expenses. Similarly, for education purpose also, whatever purchase of ticket expenses you are incurring, plus whatever is your fees for the education institution, plus whatever are your day-to-day expenses. Last but not least is the most important point. Overseas tour package program is only applicable if there is a package. Package means there has to be at least 2 items in your package. But if you separately book hotel, if you separately book flight, if you separately book other services, then the TCS will not be covered under overseas tour package and program. I hope it is clear to all of you. So what is better? You separately book hotel, separately book flight, separately book all the services, you will be escaped from the overseas tour package and program TCS. Okay. Now let's move on to the 5th TCS, that is the category 5 TCS. Now this section also has a link with section 194Q also. So along with this, we will also see 194Q after some time. Now in this section, it's a TCS on sale of goods, general goods. It is applicable to all kind of goods except 4 types of goods which are excluded from this section. Now pay attention. First of all, we need to understand who is a seller over here, who is a buyer over here. So the law says that if a seller whose last year business turnover is more than 10 crore rupees, who is a seller? I will be called as a seller for the purpose of this section if my last year business turnover is more than 10 crore rupees and seller does not include any person which is notified by central government. Now who is a buyer over here? Buyer means any person who purchases goods, not services, If you purchase any goods, not services, then you are a buyer. Plus buyer will not include again central government, state government, embassy, high commission, etc. Plus buyer will not include any other notified person. Only one person is notified by the government of India as of now. A non-resident who does not have a PE is excluded from this section. Okay. So first of all, to understand this section, you need to understand who is a seller, who is a buyer. I am a seller, you are a buyer. Let's take an example. Who is the seller? I am seller, you are buyer. Who should be the seller? The seller's last year business turnover has to be more than 10 crore rupees. Then a seller will be called as a proper seller for the purpose of this section. Who is a buyer? A buyer means a person who buys goods from me, and it does not include a non-resident who does not have a permanent establishment in India. If a buyer does not have a permanent establishment in India, then that non-resident buyer is not covered over here. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, if I am a seller and if I sell you any goods greater than 50 lakh rupees in a previous year, how much I am supposed to sell you? I am supposed to sell you goods of greater than 50 lakh rupees in a previous year, but other than 4 goods. If I export the goods, then this section is not applicable. And the goods which are mentioned in the previous 3 sections, 206C subsection 1, those 7 items, 206C subsection 1F, motor vehicle and any other luxury product which has been introduced from 1st January 2025, and 206C 1G, LRS and overseas tour package and program. Except these 3 products, all other products are covered over here. Okay. Apart from these 3 products and export goods, if I sell any goods to you, I am supposed to collect TCS at the rate of 0.1% on receipt, not on receipt or debit, whichever is earlier, in excess of sale of 50 lakh rupees. So if I am selling you 70 lakh rupees goods, I will collect TCS at the rate of 0.1% on 20 lakh rupees on excess amount. Okay. So seller, buyer, seller, last year turnover more than 10 crore, buyer, any person other than non-resident who does not have a P in India, and certain excluded buyer like central government, state government, etc. And if I sell you more than 50 lakh rupees, other than these 4 items, I will collect TCS at the rate of 0.1% on excess amount. Now, generally in case of TCS, let me take you ahead and then I'll come back to this section. Generally in case of TCS, if the buyer does not give PAN, then I am supposed to deduct the TCS at the rate of twice the rate or 5%, whichever is higher. But in case of 206C1H, this 5% has been reduced to how much? It has been reduced to 1%. It is not 5%. So in this case, it is what? If you do not give a PAN or Aadhaar, then TCS will be what? TCS will be 1%. One more thing, in this section, again I am saying, TCS is collected when? On receipt, not on receipt or debit, whichever is earlier. But in 194Q, TDS is deducted on credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Be very careful. In 194Q, which is a related section to this, there the TDS is deducted on credit or on payment, whichever is earlier. Now, let's go ahead with the next point. Point number 3, 4, etc. Point number 3, I will explain you after some time. Don't worry. Okay. That will be covered along with what? Along with 194Q. Point number 4 and 5 we have done. Point number 6. If I sell you something, I have to collect the TCS. Then whether I do sales return, still I have to do the TCS has to be collected. Whether I give a discount, still TCS has to be collected. Whether there is some GST included in that, because when I sell you the goods, my selling price is also include GST, na? TCS has to be collected on GST also. Sir, but on GST is not applicable, na? TDS is not applicable on GST. The law never says that TCS is not applicable on GST. This fine tuning has to be done by the student. Such kind of questions will be asked in the examination. TDS is not applicable on GST, but it is nowhere written that TCS is not applicable on GST. Moral of the story is TCS is applicable on the GST. Be careful with that. Okay. Point number 7. It is not applicable. This section is not applicable if you supply fuel to a non-resident airline at an airport in India. Suppose if Japan Airlines comes to Bombay Airport, and refuel their airplane, and for that they are making the payment and we are collecting the payment, we are selling them fuel, TCS is not applicable in that case. Okay. Next point. Point number 8. Whether TCS is applicable on car. Remember, what this section says that this section does not cover those goods which are mentioned in the previous sections. This section does not cover those cars which are mentioned in 206C1F. So all those cars which are mentioned in 1F will not come over here. So what is mentioned in 1F will not come over here. It means what is not mentioned in 1F will come over here. There are 2 types of cars, there are 2 types of motor vehicles which are not mentioned in 1F. Remember, if a manufacturer sell to dealer, then 1F is not applicable. So if 1F is not applicable, 1H will be applicable. Similarly, if I sell you 8 cars of 8 lakhs each, 1F is not applicable, because 1F is applicable only if the value of the vehicle is more than 10 lakhs. So if 1F is not applicable, 1H will be applicable. Check it please. This is such a minute point. All these points we will get in our question bank in the form of questions also. Okay. Last but not least, the government has given a benefit to the buyer that from 1st October 2024, if the buyer wants, the buyer can give a lower deduction certificate also, and accordingly I will deduct TDS at a lower rate. Okay. I will collect TCS at a lower rate. Now with this section we need to do 194Q also. In 5-10 minutes we will do it. Don't worry. Okay. Now there is one master section 206AB which is for TDS, and 206CCA is for TCS. The moment I explain you one, The second is exactly similar to that. I'll explain you with respect to TDS. I am a payer, you are a payee. Now the law says that if the payee has not filed the last year return, okay, the payee has not filed the last year return, and one more condition, and the last year TDS and TCS of the payee has not filed the last year return, and the last year TDS and TCS of the payee is 50,000 rupees or more. I have to fulfill two conditions. I have to check the payee's last year return status, not filed. Condition number 1 fulfill. Payee's last year's TDS and TCS 50,000 or more. Condition number 2 fulfill. Then I have to deduct the TDS at higher of what? Twice the rate or 5%, whichever is higher. So if the payee classifies to be in this section, if the payee classifies to be fulfilling these two conditions, payee has not filed the return for the last year, payee has got TDS and TCS of 50,000 or more for the last year, then it is the responsibility of the payer to deduct the TDS at higher of twice the rate or 5%, whichever is higher. This will become my revised rate. And after that, I will check. Listen, the things are not over. After that, I will check point number 3. What is point number 3? After that, I will ask the payee, do you have a PAN or not? If it does not have a PAN, then I will collect TCS at further higher rate, that revised rate or 20%, whichever is higher. I hope it is clear to all of you. First of all, you have to check the status of the return. You have to check the status of the TDS and TCS of the last year. If these two conditions are fulfilled, you will go to a new revised rate, higher of the two, and after that you will ask for the PAN number. If that is also not fulfilled, PAN is also not there, then you will check revised rate or the 20% which is mentioned in 206AA, whichever is higher. And for TCS also you have to follow the same thing. So now this provision is applicable for all the TDS section except few section. 192 salary, for salary you don't have to do all these things. 192A for PF you don't have to do all these things. 194B for lottery you don't have to do all these things. 194BA for online games you don't have to do all these things. 194BB for horse race you are not supposed to do all those things. 194IA for immobile property you don't have to do all those things. 194IB for rent you don't have to do all these things. 194LBC for securitization trust you don't have to do all these things. 194M mixture of 3 sections. 194H, J, C. Don't have to do all these things. 194N, you don't have to do all these things. Okay. Now, this is also applicable for TCS also. For TCS also, the seller will ask the buyer the same two questions. Have you filed the last year return? What is your TDS and TCS of last year? If both the conditions are fulfilled. For TCS also, I have to collect the TCS at twice the rate or 5%, whichever is higher. And then I will ask second question. Do you have PAN or not? If it does not have PAN, then further the rate will increase. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, last but not least, this section is not applicable. This section is not applicable if the non-resident payee does not have a P in India. Okay. So if the non-resident does not have a P in India, then this section is not applicable. Plus, if the payee is not required to file the return of income as notified by central government. So if the government has notified somebody who is not required to file the return for last year, then that person is also excluded from here. So is there any person who has been notified over here? Yes, only RBI is notified as of now. Check it please. Only RBI has been notified as of now. No other person is notified apart from RBI. Okay. So let's go ahead with the next provision, and the next provision is with respect to some amendment made by Finance Act 2024, as you can see over here. Now what used to happen earlier, there was a provision, and there is a provision even today under the income tax law, where if I want to give credit to some other person other than payee in respect of TDS, I can do so. For example, I am opening one fixed deposit in the name of my daughter. So the TDS will be deducted in the name of my daughter because the interest will be paid to my daughter. But she is a minor, so I told the bank that don't give the credit to my daughter because her income will be clubbed with me. So please pass on the credit not to my daughter, the payee's daughter, but pass the credit to the father because the father is ultimately going to pay tax on it. So that is possible under TDS, but under TCS it was not possible. So in Finance Act 2024, they have made an amendment that even in TCS one can do so. You can tell the seller that don't make the TCS credit in the name of the collectee, in the name of the buyer, but in the name of some other person. Okay. So that is what this provision is all about. With effect from 1st Jan 2025, the board is allowed to notify rules. What kind of rules? Where the credit of the TCS are given to a person other than the collectee. Who is the collectee? Collectee is the buyer. So the credit can be given to a person other than the buyer also from 1st of Jan 2025. But for that, the government will make complete rules. So far, they have not made any rules. Whenever they will make a rule, we will be having an absolute clarity how they are going to do about. Okay. Secondly, one clarification which they have given over here itself, that the credit of TCS of the minor shall be only allowed if the minor's income is clubbed with the parent. Otherwise, the credit will not be allowed. If the minor's income, my daughter's income, my minor daughter's income is clubbed with me or my wife, then only credit will be passed on to me or my wife of TCS. Okay. So this is what this small section is all about. Next is not related to TDS. It is related to some other thing, not actually related to TDS, but it is not getting fit anywhere. So we have covered this section over here itself, but it is a very, very, very important section. 269 ST and 271 DA. Sir, what is 269 ST? 269 ST talks about if you receive any money from any person of 2 lakh or more, I should receive that money by account pay check, account pay draft, ECS or such other electronic mode. Otherwise, I will be gone. Otherwise, there will be a penalty which will be imposed on me under 271 DA. So if I receive from any person 2 lakh or more, then I should receive by 4 modes which are written by the law. Account pay check, account pay draft, ECS and such other electronic mode. That's it. Now, how to compute this 2 lakh rupees? You have to compute this 2 lakh rupees in 3 different ways. First, aggregate amount received from same person in a day. So from one person in a day, you should not receive 2 lakh or more in cash or in bearer check or in cross check. You should receive by the 4 modes. Or if the transaction is of a single day, suppose the invoice is made of 2 days, then I cannot receive 2 lakh or more in multiple days also. Suppose I purchase something of 3 lakh rupees today and the invoice is made. Now I am paying 60,000 today, 60,000 tomorrow, 60,000 then 60,000, then 60,000 in 5 different days. That is also prohibited. That is also not allowed because the transaction is of a single day. And third, in respect of one event or occasion. If there is one event and occasion, for that, if I am receiving 2 lakh or more in multiple days, then also it is not allowed. I hope it is clear to all of you how to compute this limit. Now, coming to this CBDT clarification after some time. Before that, for whom this section is not applicable? Who can receive 2 lakh or more in cash in a single day? Who can receive 2 lakh or more in cash in respect of a transaction? Who can receive 2 lakh or more in cash in respect of an event or occasion? Government can receive, bank can receive, post office can receive, cooperative bank can receive. Okay. Second, a transaction which is covered under 269 SS will not be covered over here. What is covered under 269 SS is loan. For loan, 269 SS is applicable, and in 269 SS the limit is only 20,000. It is not 2 lakh rupees. Third, such other persons as notified by the central government, and the government has notified in 2017 the following people. That is, if you go to bank and withdraw cash, it is allowed. The bank will give you 2 lakh rupees or more in cash and you can withdraw. You can also withdraw cash in from bank. It is allowed. From cooperative bank, you can withdraw. From post office, you can withdraw. When the cash is received by business correspondent of a banking company or a cooperative bank, they are allowed. When a cash is received by white label ATM operator, do you remember white label ATM operator also came in where? Where did they came? 194N also. If you receive from an agent issued by an issuer of prepaid instrument, if the cash is received by a credit card company against a credit card bill, you can pay the credit card company in cash. They will receive 2 lakh rupees or more in cash. Or if you receive some amount which is not includable under the total income under section 1017A. So if your income is not covered under 1017A, then that is also covered over here. Now, if you violate this section, Joint Commissioner of Income Tax has the power to impose penalty after giving an opportunity of being heard to you. How much penalty? Equivalent to the amount received in cash. Okay. Equivalent to the amount received in bearer check, equivalent to the amount received in cross check. You should not receive by these modes. Up below 2 lakhs you can receive, no issue, but 2 lakhs or more you have to receive by 4 modes. Okay. Now some CBDT clarifications over here. 2 CBDT clarifications are there. Sir, whether NBFC is also excluded from here? No. NBFCs are not excluded. They are not supposed to take cash. They are not supposed to take 2 lakh rupees or more in cash. Only bank is covered, post office is covered, saving bank, post office, saving bank and cooperative banks are covered. NBFCs are not excluded over here. NBFCs have to follow this section. Therefore, for example, I am an NBFC, you are my customer. You have taken a loan of 2 crore rupees from me. Now, I have given you 2 crore rupees loan. Now, this giving of 2 crore rupees loan is one transaction. Agree or not? Giving of 2 crore rupees loan is one transaction for bank, for NBFC. Now, you are making a payment of EMI of say 2.5 lakh every month in cash. So, every transaction will be considered to be a separate transaction, right? Because if the transaction is of 2 lakh or more, because the original transaction of giving the loan is of 2 crore rupees. Now, when you make the repayment of that loan in the form of EMI, all the EMIs will be aggregated. But for NBFCs, the government has given a relaxation and they have said that every EMI will be considered to be a separate transaction. And if every EMI also exceeds 2 lakhs or more in cash, then only this section will attract. For example, if every EMI is 1.5 lakh and you are paying every month 1.5 lakh in cash, all EMIs will not be aggregated to attract 269 ST. I hope it is clear to all of you. The same is the case with cooperative society. I am a cooperative society and you are my dealers. You are my what? Dealers. And now we have entered into a dealership contract. Okay, now this entering into dealership contract is one single transaction. Now you are selling my goods, you are making some payment to me, you are making some payment to me. All of them will not be aggregated for the purpose of cooperative society also. They will be separately computed. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now coming to the next section and the last section over here, then we will move ahead toward one last section 194Q, which we have left, which we had to do along with 2061H. Now what is 269SU? First of all, 269SU is applicable only to business. It is not applicable to professions. Be careful with that. Secondly, this is applicable if the last year turnover exceeds 50 crore rupees. If the last year turnover of the business exceeds 50 crore rupees, then this section is applicable. What is this section? Then the government says that the businessman has to keep prescribed modes for the customers. Prescribed electronic modes have to be there in the business. When the customer come to make the payment by that mode, you need to have that mode. Which are those prescribed modes? Debit card powered by RuPay has to be there in your business. It is applicable for whom? Whose last year business turnover is more than 50 crore rupees. It is not applicable to profession. Secondly, you should have UPI, Bhim UPI. You should have UPI QR code, Bhim QR code. These three modes have to be there in the business along with all other modes which you are accepting, like cash you are accepting credit card, debit card, internet banking, check you are accepting. All those things are not necessary, but these 3 points are absolutely necessary if your business turnover of last year is more than 50 crore rupees. If you don't install these modes in your business to accept money from your customer, you will be levied with a penalty of 5,000 rupees every day till the time you continue to do the failure. An opportunity of being heard will be given to you and the penalty will be imposed by the Joint Commissioner of Income Tax. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Now this section is not applicable to certain people. If you are doing transaction, shall not be applicable to a specified person having only B2B transaction. It means you are doing business to business transaction. You are not doing transaction with your retail customers, and 95% of the amount is received by what? Other than cash. So if you are doing B2B transaction and 95% of the amount is received by other than cash, then this section is not applicable for you. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now next one, which are, this is just for summarizing the entire chapter for you all, so that you don't have to remember again and again the same thing, because this will create confusion for all of you. That is, which are the sections under TDS which are only deductible on payment basis. Rest all sections are deductible on payment or credit, whichever is earlier. That is 192, 192A, 194, 194B, 194BB, BA, DA, LA, N. These are the sections in which TDS is deducted on payment basis, not on credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Rest all section, credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Which are the sections in which TCS is collected on receipt basis? Total 5 TCS are there, out of which 2 TCSs are there in which TCS is collected on only receipt basis. That is 1F, motor car, and 1H, sale of goods more than 50 lakh rupees. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. So these are the 2 cases which is going to help you all to remember the provision in a better manner. Okay. Now, coming back to one last thing of this chapter, then we'll wrap up this chapter. That is, the revision of TDS in full English will be done after this comprehensively for you all. Now, what is this section? TDS on purchase of goods. Whom it is applicable? Buyer. What kind of buyer? The buyer's last year business turnover has to be more than 10 crore rupees. Business turnover, not the total turnover. If I am a buyer and if last year business turnover is more than 10 crore, this section is applicable for me. Who is the seller? Seller is resident. Seller has to be resident. Seller need not be non-resident. Non-residents are not covered over here. When will I deduct TDS? I will deduct TDS on credit or payment, whichever is earlier. How much TDS I will deduct? I will deduct 0.1% in excess of 50 lakh rupees, not on entire amount. If I am purchasing 70 lakh rupees goods, I will deduct TDS only on 20 lakhs, 0.1%. What if the seller does not give PAN? Then 5%, it is not 20%. There are 2 sections in which the seller does not give PAN. It is 5% instead of 20%. One is this, one is 194O. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. Now, this section is not applicable in certain cases. Let me tell you the permutation and combination. I am a buyer, you are a seller. My last year business turnover is more than 10 crore. Your last year business turnover is also more than 10 crore. Now the confusion will start. Whether I will deduct TDS or you will collect TCS. Whether I will deduct TDS under 194Q or you will deduct TCS under 194 or you will collect TCS under 206C1H. So let me tell you very clearly, if there is a fight between 194Q and 206C1H, then 194Q will prevail, 206C1H will not prevail. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. I am just giving you the comparison of all the provisions. Second, if there is a fight between I am buying, you are selling. I am buyer, you are selling. Or you are selling me alcohol. You are selling me alcohol. You are selling me timber. You are selling me motor car of more than 10 lakh rupees. Then will I deduct TDS or you will collect TCS? Because for these items, there is a separate section under 206C subsection 1, 206C subsection 1F, 206C subsection 1G. Separate TCS sections. So if there is a fight between 194Q and 206C subsection 1, 206C subsection 1F, 206C subsection 1G, then TCS will win the fight and TDS will lose the fight. Therefore, in that case, TDS will lose, TCS will win. I hope it is clear to all of you. Third, if there is a fight between 194O and 194Q, then in that case 194O will win the fight and 194Q will lose the fight. So I am telling you, if there is a clash between two sections, then who will prevail on whom? That is one of the most important part of this particular section. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Now coming to the next point, which is also related to what? TCS. I have told you earlier also, but now I am telling you properly. I am a buyer, you are a seller. Okay, I am a buyer, you are a seller. You are selling me what? You are selling me, for example, timber. Now, if you are selling me timber, by default, you should collect TCS from me under section 206C subsection 1. But I am a resident buyer. I am giving you a declaration that I am not buying timber from you for trading, but I am buying timber from you for manufacturing or power generation. So in that case, remember, there is an exemption that you will not collect TCS. Remember? But in that case, the buyer is liable to deduct TDS if buyer's last year business turnover is more than 10 crore and buyer buys timber and alcohol and other product of more than 50 lakh rupees. In that case, the buyer will be responsible to deduct the TDS. The seller will be exempted from TCS, but the buyer will be responsible to deduct the TDS check. TCS, check it over here. TDS, check it over here. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one. Whether TDS will be applicable on GST portion, VAT portion, sales tax portion, CST, excise duty, in short, indirect tax. Now that also depends. See, TDS is deductible on credit or payment, whichever is earlier. If I do credit first, then I have an invoice. And if I have an invoice, I have a breakup. This much is the base price, this much is the GST, this much is the VAT, this much is the excise duty. Then I will not deduct TDS on the GST portion. I will deduct TDS only on the base price. But if I do the payment first, advance first, then I don't have the invoice. In that case, I will deduct TDS on the entire amount which I pay. I will not do the breakup because I don't have the breakup only. I hope it is clear to all of you. Next one. Suppose I purchased goods of 80 lakh rupees from you and I deducted TDS on 30 lakh rupees from you. Then I did not like the goods. I returned the goods to you. Now there are two possibilities. You will replace the goods. If you replace the goods, I don't have to do anything. But if you don't replace the goods, you give the goods, you take the goods back and you refund to me. Then in that case, I have paid extra TDS to the government of India because you have given me the refund. I have given you the goods. The transaction is squared up. Now what can I do? Whatever TDS I have already paid to the government for this item which is refunded, I can adjust against your transaction again in future. Only against your transaction. Only against the same seller. In future, when I buy the goods from you, I will not deduct TDS on that much amount of 30 lakh rupees. I hope it is clear to all of you. This is what this wants to tell you. Whether non-resident buyers are covered. Let's see. 194Q not applicable in case of non-resident buyer. The buyer cannot be non-resident except where the non-resident having a P and the purchase related to that P. So if the buyer is a non-resident and he has a permanent establishment in India, then 194Q is applicable. If the buyer does not have a permanent establishment in India, then the buyer is not liable to deduct the TDS. Okay. Whether the seller's income is exempt, then are we liable to deduct TDS? No. If the seller's income is exempt under some section like 1023A, 1044, then the buyer is not liable to deduct TDS in that particular case. First year of incorporation. If this is the first year of incorporation, whether 194Q is applicable? Absolutely no. Why? Because one of the conditions to apply 194Q is last year business turnover has to be greater than 10 crore. In first year, last year business turnover is 0. Therefore, 194Q will not be applicable. Okay. Next one. In point number 11, which I have been saying again and again, you have to check the business turnover and not total turnover of last year. Total turnover is not relevant. Only the business turnover is relevant. If the total turnover is more than 10 crore, but the business turnover is less than 10 crore, 194Q is not applicable. Okay. Next. Central government, state government cannot be seller. Central government, state government cannot be seller. It means you cannot deduct TDS of central government and state government. Okay. No taxes to be deducted by the buyer in case where the department of any government are seller. Any other person such as PSU, public sector company, yes, you can deduct TDS in that case. So if the payee is central government, state government, do not deduct TDS. If the seller is the public sector company or any authority, any body, local authority, then you will deduct the TDS. What about the central government or the government is a buyer? Can the government be the buyer? Can the government deduct TDS? That depends upon one factor. See, one of the important condition of deducting TDS under this section by the buyer is last year business turnover has to be more than 10 crore. This is one of the most important condition which you have to fulfill. So if your last year business turnover is more than 10 crore, you have to deduct the TDS. Now you need to check, there are two types of department in the government. One is a business department, one is a service department. For example, income tax department, GST department, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, these are service department, and post office department, that is a business department. So if the the department of government is the business department, then the provisions of 194Q will apply. If the department of government is the service department, then the provisions of 194Q will not apply. This is what it wants to tell us. Okay, so this is what the provision of TDS are all about. We have comprehensively done all the provisions of TDS in respect of the income tax law which are relevant for your exam. Yes, we have not done one category of TDS so far in our revision, which we will do later on. That is with respect to non-residents. So whenever the topic of non-residents will be revised, we will be doing that also. Don't worry. Don't worry. I will be uploading all the topics in full English for you all. In the next few days, I will upload capital gains also. I will upload non-resident taxation also. I will upload trust also. I will upload transfer pricing also. This much I will upload in this month. Next, I will upload rest of the small topics I will upload in the next month. Okay. I hope it is clear to all of you. Till then, what is your duty? You have to watch this revision videos n number of times, as many times as it is possible to you. You will not get a more comprehensive revision video in full English as compared to ours video. And you have to share this with your friends in South India, whomsoever wants to learn direct tax in full English. Okay. Till then, take care all of you. See you soon with the next chapter. Bye all of you.